Welcome back to the SPL studio for our second and final matchup of the day, and we've got a good one for you. Still in studio are the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs, but we got to give shout-outs to our chair sponsor here at the SPL, our friends over at Maxnomic. Look, no kidding on this one. I just casted a 2.5-hour set with Mifflin. The most comfortable chair there is. Don't worry, we stood up, we got hype, and all excited for the final big moments there. But it was a difficult decision to stand up and get hype because of how comfortable those Maxnomic chairs are. Needforseat.com is where you want to head. So shout-outs to our friends over at Maxnomic. Grab yourself a SMITE chair today, and you won't ever want to stand up and get out of your seat unless you're cheering. Mifflin was alongside me cheering in game number 1 there, Miff. Whole lot of fun to watch, and this next one we've got on our slate, Bolts versus Scarabs, has the potential to maybe be another lengthy set in a weekend where we started off pretty quickly, and then grinding halt makes it sound like I'm not happy with that one being in a competitive set, but we really slowed down there, almost 2.5 hours in our third set of the week, and this is really what we want to see here. Standings. Remember, top 2 is where you want to be in order to draft the groups for the other teams here in the league. 7 is the number of games you will play before you are able to draft those groups. So the Kings have only got one more set. The Bolts have got a couple. The Scarabs have got a couple. The Leviathans have got a couple. So you're starting to see this picture form a little bit more moving forward here. So the Bolts with a great chance to get closer, get back to controlling their own destiny in those top 2 spots. Let's talk a little bit, Miff, about the first team in this matchup, the Solar Scarabs, a team that is 1-4, but has 3 losses in 3-game sets. I mean, a team that has competed with the top teams in the league so far.
It's always the Solar Scarabs playing up to the level of their competition.
Yep.
They're always capable of finding these wins. Game 2, generally a little bit more so than games 1 and 3, but maybe they're able to rectify that curse coming into this week. The Solar Scarabs, I'd argue, this is a must-win set for them. They've got the Atlantis Leviathans up next as their last matchup of this phase, and well, the Atlantis Leviathans don't do a whole lot of losing. So if the Scarabs want to improve their standings, they've got to go through the Olympus Bolts first, and well, they are looking improved. That's something we say week in and week out, but it remains true week in and week out. These guys constantly evolving, constantly expanding their god pools, evaluating how they want to play the team fight phase. That's really where I'd argue the majority of their improvement has been. In the past and earlier phases this year, it's, the Solar Scarabs, yeah, they're an early game team. They're like Jade Dragon's Light. Now, they're starting to clean up that late game. They're becoming a real threat to every single phase of the match, and maybe here today solidify themselves another win.
Yeah, I think Stewart has looked a lot better for this team as well. Some growing pains when he first joined the roster, but I think more consistent down the stretch. This is getting into nitpicky picks and bans kind of talk, but that Sylvanas for inbound, I actually think deserves to be a topic of conversation when we get into picks and bans a little bit later on, because it's been a pick that the league in general has been happy to pick early on, but inbound in general has looked pretty good on that pick. Self-proclaimed best Sylvanas in the world, but does back it up with some good play.
Yeah, also self-proclaimed progenitor of those Sylvanas inside of the SPL.
I don't know what that word. I don't know what that word means.
He did it first. Pioneer. How's that?
Look, Miff, I told you we did 2.5 hours.
I know.
That's not what I told you. No, so you're saying he's the first to do it. No, but I do think, look, and I even undercut it a little bit. The Solar Scarabs team has played 5 sets so far this phase. 4 of them have gone 3 games. And all of them have looked pretty competitive. I think the guys themselves, the Oni Warriors set, bit of a fluke, that one a 2-0. But the rest of them, this Solar Scarabs team, very competitive in all of them. The man in charge himself, Slaney, joins us now with J-Mac for a pregame interview.
Yeah, that's right. I got Slaney standing by, the brains behind the team here, and kind of talking a little bit on that Sylvanas and more so kind of the front line for this team. When it comes to these picks and bans, how big and how important really is that priority of getting those comfortable picks there for inbound and over in your solo lane too for SOT?
I mean, right now we try to focus a lot on having like a pretty strong front line. So picking these picks that Bobby's really comfortable on is something really good, and I think that's something that we've had success with, is having Bobby pick whatever he thinks is best in this situation, and letting his judgment is usually what goes best for us.
Yeah, so. Let's make sure Bobby's happy. Get the charisma of the team, so I'm a little bit happy there. Look, you got a tough matchup for this set not only, but your next one as well. What are some of those things you guys have been working on cleaning up to try and get a win here against the Bolts, and then even up against the Leviathans next week?
I mean, obviously, you can look at our mistakes, and a lot of the time it comes from, I think, lack of experience, but also just lack of experience in late game team fights. But as a team, I think we're still focusing on there. We go into scrims knowing that the issues that we need to work on, and I think we've done a pretty good job at that week to week. So it's just making sure that we do the things that we've worked on in scrims and making sure we're like putting that into game in SBL.
Got any, without revealing everything, got any little tricks you might see out here today?
Potentially in letting things open. We're luckily in a spot where these games, I mean, everyone said it, they don't matter like that much, so we can kind of have the room to experiment with things and how we want to do drafts. So.
Yeah, we heard it here from Slaney. We'll go ahead and let him get back with the team and get set up for game number 1. We'll go ahead and throw it right back to the desk.
Appreciate Slaney for standing by. I made the mistake. I said sitting down with me in the post-game interview, and production promptly corrected me. So thanks to Slaney for standing by with us for the pre-game interview here on this one. And I think wise words from Slaney there. Look, I mean, this is a team that has improved, and they're in a very similar spot, Miff, to the first time we saw these group stages, where mathematically they won't be in those top 2 spots. But remember back in the first round of group stages, the Solar Scarabs were in such a unique position where they were further down in the standings, but still got prioritized higher up than like the Oni Warriors, the Valkyries, like as a team that people were wary of. And I think probably still in a very similar spot here, maybe even more so, because you talk about a different Game 3 against the Titans, a different Game 3 against the Kings, a different Game 3 against the Jade Dragons. This is a very different looking win-loss for the Scarabs. It's kind of that ace up your sleeve, sort of the wild-eyed, quick draw gunners here in the league. X Factor, there you go, Miff. God, you're just filling in all the blanks for me today. I appreciate it. Though a team that they're going up against, no one to scoff at all. A team that is still, I think, mathematically in the race for one of those top 2 spots are the Olympus Bolts. And admittedly, Miff, this has been a difficult team, I think, to hammer down. I mean, the Bolts go 3 against the Warriors to start off the phase. They beat the Valkyries, lose to the Dragons, beat the Kings, go to 3 against the Leviathans. Kind of feels like, depending on the day, you get one of the best in the league or maybe middle of the pack.
Yeah, the Olympus Bolts, I think, to speak to your point, are pretty hard to lock down. They're not going for like these hyper late-game team fight compositions a la the Tartarus Titans. They're not looking for that early-game dominance that the Jade Dragons are. They don't really have that same level of macro map dominance that the Camelot Kings bring, but what the Olympus Bolts do bring is phenomenal individual play and massive team fight potential, I'd argue. And when I talk about individual play, I think this is exactly what comes to the majority of people's minds. This was a set where Lazarus found like 6 solo kills.
That's right.
Up against Captain Twig. And you're absolutely right to say that this team has the potential to be some of the best inside of the league. Back in Phase 1, these guys were on one of the largest win streaks that we've seen here all year. I believe it was 7 games straight, stopped by the Camelot Kings, as the Kings are apt to do. And then sometimes they come out and they just kind of, it feels like going through the motions might be the right word, but when the Olympus Bolts are going through the motions, it's pretty nice still. They're all, on their worst day, they're playing like a 5th seed. On their best day, they're playing like a 1st seed. It's just whether or not they can hone in that just level of consistency.
And remember, back when this team was on that win streak in Phase 1, a lot of the conversation was around Lasbra and Venenu and how they were playing some of the best Smite of their career, and the team looked so much better for it. Jake had matured a little bit in his in-game play. Haddix was looking great out of the solo lane for this team. And I want to bring up Lasbra and Scream here in this one, because I think by similar team dynamic changes, Scream came into the Solar Scarabs roster, changed how this team plays, changed how this team looks. And so I think maybe one of the more important jungle matchups in the league today is Lasbra versus Scream.
Yeah, Lasbra has been pretty consistent here inside of Phase 3. The conversation in Phase 1 was when he was playing at those heights, looked amazing, but also had some pretty low lulls as well. Phase 2, we didn't really see that. It was more like of an average performance throughout, found that consistency, but wasn't quite able to reach up to those heights. And very recently, I say that Lasbra has consistently been great out of the jungle, whereas Scream, it's a little bit of more of a one-note conversation around him. When he joins the Scarabs, he looked really good, and he's continued to be that pillar for this team.
I mean, if there is slight overlap in the picks and bans as far as layers and Scream goes, and we will see if there is overlap in picks and bans for game number 1 between the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs live in studio. We got 2 in-studio matchups for you here today.
What a treat.
What a treat, huh? We
That's
got
right.
one tomorrow as
Look
well.
at us.
Look at us. Who thought we'd be here?
Not me.
Not me. Wait, you say that. I could.
Yeah,
I
you
stole
did
your
both.
line. I stole your one and only line in the bit. I apologize there, Miff. Bolts find themselves in that first pick slot, Solar Scarabs in the second. And so things, and think about what Slaney said there. Better off, and you know, it's an important kind of takeaway. Better off are the Solar Scarabs, and Bobby gets something that he's comfortable with when the front line feels like they're able to operate within a realm of comfort here. So I think the Solar Scarabs and maybe then the Olympus Bolts are able to prioritize taking some of those away if you're looking at the Bolts and picking some of those early on. SOT deserves to be a topic of conversation every time the Solar Scarabs are playing, because you look at aggressive and mechanically skilled solo lane players here in this league. Over the last couple matchups at least, SOT has moved himself up that list.
Yeah, SOT has been so consistent. I mean, what was it, a 1 versus 3 turnaround kill that he was able to find up against the Jade Dragons? I mean, he is just an incredibly talented mechanical player and also the champion of the Solar Scarabs 1v1 on her Joust tournament. If you want to see those, make sure you're tuning in on Mondays. What?
You played in a couple of those, right?
No.
I mean,
I'm not a player. I'm a caster.
He won the Scarabs versus Scarabs Joust tournament. You played in a couple after the fact.
You're misremembering.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Got it. Somebody else on the caster team was in there losing.
Probably aggro.
Yeah, must have been. No, he was with me in the pod. He was with me in the
Hindu?
side room. No, Hindu wasn't in that day.
Well, let's go ahead and stop dragging through those and instead take a peek at these bans, Dave. It is Uhl, Sylvanas, and Geb banned away by the Bolts, and the Solar Scarabs going to take their eyes a little bit more so towards that Soul Lane. Odin and Nike removed with the Morgan at the top.
That leaves Artio open. This is something we saw. I was admittedly surprised if back-to-back games the Jade Dragons got Artio in our previous set after Artio, yeah, right there, 80% ban rate, 20% pick rate, so 100% pick ban if you want to do the math on that.
I do.
100% pick
so 80
ban.
plus
80
20,
plus 20, 100% pick ban.
Okay.
But I was surprised, admittedly, that Artio had made it through and was able to be shut down a couple times by just more obnoxious frontline. I am curious. Look, I mean, these teams scrim. They practice things throughout the week. They're coming in with a game plan here today. I don't imagine you pivot from that all that much. But just how annoying and comfortable the front line of the, oh my God, why am I blanking on? The Titans looked in our previous set. My brain is melted.
It was 2.5 hours, man.
Right, 2.5 hours. With how comfortable those compositions look, I wonder if there's, these guys are in the studio watching the games. I wonder if there's kind of split-second game plan pivots here maybe in some of the drafts, because those front lines were near unkillable in our previous set. So far, not the makings of that, with Morgan and Nike banned out on one side, Geb banned out on the other, so the front lines will at least have to be a little bit different. Artio plus Terra, though, Miff, you talk about staunch front lines as well as some good supplementary healing. You got both if you're the Bolts.
Yeah, they've got great in-combat healing from Artio in that Druid form. Going to be able to apply triple heals if you're able to find 3 targets. Terra with Earth and Fury, having that late-game auto-win condition and pressing 4, just so good, not only at applying damage, but also a burst of healing to your team. But I think maybe more so interesting inside of this set so far is Bobby inbound going towards this Umoja. I mean, the conversation around Umoja and the Solar Scarabs originally was, they keep playing it, but Bobby cannot. He's not very good at it, and that is no longer the case. A lot of strides have gone towards this Umoja play for the Solar Scarabs, and now he's an incredible threat on this pick. The Riptides have been great, the ultimates as well. His positioning has improved significantly. Maybe through the help of Scream on this Tsukiyomi, could find a lot of early game presence.
Do you have all of Gore's spreadsheets pulled up on that computer over there?
Don't tell me the narrative. It's so hard to navigate.
Gore, no, you're on crutches. I was gonna ask him to pull up what the win rate now is on inbound for Umoja, and I feel bad because Gore has crutched his way over here and he is helping us out. But it hasn't
on the wrong sheet.
All right, so Mifflin was way off base here. Look at Gore. God, what a trooper he is. He crutches his way on in, helps Mifflin out with the hefty spreadsheets he's
13
got.
total games. That's from Gore here.
So 13 total games inbound on Umoja. And we're waiting with bated
keep
breath.
talking. 2. So
all right, I'll admit I was expecting
more.
I was fully expecting that the win rate had
2 wins, by the
vastly
way.
improved. There was a while though where it hadn't won, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it was
a
like
long
0 and
time.
it was like
It was
0 and 8.
0%.
It was like 0 and 8 or something. So the wins have flowed.
That's significantly more.
It is
infinitely more.
It is infinitely
infinitesimally.
more. All right, it is infinitely more. We're sticking with the blue crew though. Umoja, Tsukiyomi follows up on that. And so you're giving Scream some playmaking potential here, Mifflin, out of the jungle, and kind of a free ticket to the backline with that piercing moonlight.
You are, and he's got some decent targets already inside of the Izanami. That leap, so easy to track with the piercing moonlight. You leave a little dust trail to wherever you jump towards, so Scream should be able to find that target relatively easily. That said, if he's diving deep into the backline, he's going to have to contend with picks like Terra and Artio. What was that?
You leave a little dust trail?
Yeah, you leave a little dust trail.
You learn something new every day.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's like
Biak Guy on Twitter saying you found out you can upgrade your acorn out of base.
Yeah, what? He didn't know that.
Oh, he tweeted about it, and then there was a whole thread of people like after like 8 years of playing the game, discovering things for the first time.
Oh, congratulations! Today I learned.
I would like to think that me discovering there's a dust that might be bad. I don't know. Maybe that is bad. We're gonna move on as quickly as possible.
You gotta think about it balance-wise. If she were able to leap and be invisible, and you don't know where she starts, that's tough to deal with.
Oh wait, where she starts? I thought you meant
No,
it follows her.
It follows you to the leap.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but you don't leave a dust trail as you're walking.
No, as you're walking.
Okay,
no.
Okay. So I didn't learn anything new today, and thank God for it. We gotta lock it down here, Miff. We got a good one to make our way through without our final brain cells leaving us. Tiamat and Raijin, final 2 bans here for the Solar Scarabs. Of course, the Bolts, Venenu specifically, needing something out of the mid. How about this Discordia? And actually, I spy a sneaky chalk pick here as well, and that might be worth diving into. But I do want to talk about Discordia first. Has seen Horizon play. You know, it's kind of big man Tings for a while, extended out to a few of the different mid laners here in this league. I think Venenu can play it pretty well. Veronic in that conversation. Do you think Discordia is in a pretty good spot right now?
I do. I mean, she's got some of the best self-peel of any mages inside of the game. Strife's so incredibly hard to deal with, especially if you're getting multi-targeted dived, or dove rather. I love it when there's 2 people trying to dive in. I'm playing Discordia. Drop Strife on your feet, drop Unruly Magic at your feet, Golden Apple if you so choose, and you're probably able to remove somebody from the map. But I think maybe the main strength of Discordia is the passive, giving somebody on the map, whoever's got top damage on your side, additional power. Whoever is succeeding just starts to succeed more. The rich get richer. Feels pretty nice.
How about Pele now for Lasbra? In the last 6 games, hasn't played it. Been a couple Ravens, Loki, Set, Dachi, Nike for Laz. What kind of playstyle do you need on this Pele? And do you think Lasbra fits that playstyle? You
want to go in aggressive, and you want to get involved very early on. Leverage that movement speed to maneuver the map a little bit more quickly than every other jungler. And if you can remember back to Phase 1, Phase 2, there was this thing called the cringe gank, and that was later coined just the Lasbra gank because he was the only one that held on to doing it for like an extra 4 months. Pele is the type of god that can do exactly that. She can find her way inside the dual lane just a little bit earlier than everybody else. And when you've got late game hyper carry picks like Morgan Le Fay or like great late game team fight presence of the Ardio and the Terra, Pele is going to act as a great bridge to that point.
All right, so I said Scream on the Tsukiyomi myth. Looks like it will be SOT on Tsukiyomi.
Agreed.
And Scream on the Hunbats. If there is a player that is going to play something less than conventional and somehow make it work in the solo lane, it feels like it'll be SOT. Initial gut reaction to Suku Sola.
Suku Sola does a lot of damage. You've got alright matchup into the Ardio in that you're probably playing a little bit further away than Ardio would like. You're just throwing out that poke consistently. But I would be doing a disservice, especially considering Cyclone Spin was in the building earlier today. When he played solo lane, he was apt to take the Hunbots there, so there is flex potential. It could potentially be Hunbots inside of the solo, but I'd say like at most 20% odds of that happening. Yeah,
my initial gut reaction would be that you want Scream on something to set up with the Fear No Evil early and often in this game. So it looks like Myth, Ardio plus Terra, and then you got a whole lot of follow-up on the back end of that. Between that, and we're going to operate that this is Suku solo.
Yes.
Ardio, Terra, Yamoja, Tsukiyomi. Is there one of the 2 front lines you think a bit more formidable going into game 1?
So hard to argue against the CC lockdown that Ardio brings on her own, as well as the counter engage of Terra. Tsukiyomi, I think it'll be playing a little bit more so that damage role. If the Solar Scarabs are able to establish a lead with this composition, they have the potential to just barrel over the Olympus Bolts. But if they go to a late game phase from even, I'm heavily favoring this Bolts draft.
I think this has got to be a good game from Stewart as well. You're prioritizing first pick into this Heimdall. You get the Yamoja afterwards. So you're obviously putting some confidence in inbound and playing this pick better than, what was it, 2 and 15 or something along those lines.
13 and 2.
You're feeling like you've got...
13 games played, 2 wins.
2 wins, right. You're putting more confidence in the pick than what the KDA shows for inbound. Game number 1 in studio between the Bolts and the Scarabs starts right now.
Yeah, it's our second in-studio set of the day. We've been getting to say that a little bit more often here in Phase 3, and honestly feels really good. We do have the Bolts and the Scarabs here. Game number 1. It's J-Mac and Gormizer bringing you the calls. Going to be Doug, actually, this time. I thought we were going to get Billy, but no, we got Doug here for our second set of the day, bringing the action on the camera. Initial thoughts here on bringing out this Tsukiyomi solo. We've been seeing it mostly out of jungle for Scream, But then as soon as Bats gets locked in, we all kind of immediately go towards, okay, maybe it will be sought on the Tsukiyomi. It will be. What are your initial thoughts on it?
I really like it. I actually think, and this is if memory serves correctly, one of the first times we got to see Tsukiyomi solo was as a counter to specifically Cthulhu over in the duo or solo lane. Like, it was just something to take up against a lot of the Guardians at the time that had been taking over. And it was something, I think that, along with Set, Finoke was playing a lot of various and sundry gods. I think it's something that up against the RDO, like maybe lane matchup, you're not expecting anything crazy, but team fight wise, it's going to be insane. You get 2 assassins, one of them's going to be a little tankier, but still diving the backline. As long as Sot can make it through this beginning, fine. Jeez, Lazra.
Getting a nice little pick there against Baronic at level 1. Doesn't have that leap available, and Lazra with just a little bit too much damage here at this level 2. First blood goes to the Olympus Bolts. All eyes were on the duo lane there for a moment. We saw Stewart have to use his beads when Jake just walked up, dropped the wall, and slowed him down with those basics. But now it's Jake who needs to be a little bit careful. He's up pretty close to that tower line, but he'll be able to dash away A-okay.
Look, I'm going to give him credit. Pele does a decent amount of damage. I will admit, Pele's level 2 is not where I think of a lot of that damage. So good on Lazra for being able to find an open opportunity, especially to get a kill onto Baronic early on. That really is going to set up specifically Venenu on this Morgan Le Fay, someone that we've seen kind of fall by the wayside more and more lately. A bigger opportunity to shine and admittedly do really well. A lot of good damage, and actually looking at the pathing, he might do it again.
Going for it. Some nice damage out of Ven. He'll throw out a Pyroclast, but not get a whole lot of damage off the tail end of it, so Baronic will be alive and healthy under his Tier 1 tower. Haddix has been bullied under his own Tier 1. Just that early clear power that comes from the Assassin, the natural base damage coming out of that god. It's proving to be maybe a little bit too much for this RDO, but now the RDO has hit level 3, does have potential access to all abilities in that kit, so the clear could be strong, but it seems that SOT is unrelenting in that continued aggression here in that solo lane. Stewart, again, has to use that Bifrost inbound, caught in the middle of the wall. He'll take about half of his health, but so will Jake. Some good poke coming back from Stewart.
And I really like the damage. Like, Stewart, look, we have to look at the way this duo lane looks. It could be good, but Sot's in trouble.
Sot in danger, a knockup is good, and Lazra is making waves across the map. Haddix gets the kill. SOT falls down, 2 kills up for the Bolts and maybe more. A good double stun from Jake and a double root. Make sure that he gets out of danger in this duo lane, but another big pick over here for Lazra on this right side.
I am a little worried now. I specifically think Solar Troll has a lot of capabilities to fight back. This might be a big fight for him.
Scream goes in. The somersault is good to slow him down, but the healing back from Lazra, not enough to keep him alive. It's Scream who gets the kill, and Haddix slowed down. SOT looking to strike right back, but the dash from Haddix might just be enough to cover the distance. SOT, can he make it in time? He'll get some damage. Yeah, looking for the basic to go through, trying to weave it in. He'll find it right back behind the minion. SOT strikes back, and quickly the Scares put 2 of their own right on the board.
Plus they get a blue buff, plus they still have the minion wave, and they're going to get the full effect of it, or most of that minion wave on top of it. Should be ticking over yet. A level 5, at least for one of them there for Sot. Once they pick up the blue buff or the Totem Maku, should be 5 there for Scream. That is pretty much the turnaround you need if things have been going not really abysmally earlier on, but definitely something to help right the ship, right? If Solar Troll dies once unanswered, not the end of the world. Twice unanswered, you're starting to stress out. 3 times unanswered, and then things might be looking really bad for the Assassin over there. You not only help get a kill there for your jungler, but you also pick up a kill onto the opposing solo laner. You're in the lead now.
Oh, Baronic taking a huge chunk, and Lazra's got more than enough damage with that Volcanic Lightning right at the Tier 1 tower line. He will slam into Baronic, puts him in the dirt a second time, and Baronic not giving a whole lot of fun on this Discordia here in the mid lane. SOT does still have that very slight lead over Haddix thanks to that kill earlier on. Does miss that stun against Haddix and looking to go towards a Blackthorn Hammer for his first item as he's bought that Tier 2 Shillelagh. Stewart and Inbound, man, they've not been having a whole lot of success in this dual lane, keeping Jake and Barracuda back. It seems that every time we peek back over here, those guys are sitting right at that Tier 1 tower line.
And you got to think about it. Yamoja has decent amount of wave clear on her own and usually can bounce that, but Heimdall doesn't. So he is going to suffer, mainly to the likes of something like an Izanami. Any hunter that's going to have better clear than him is going to help it out. Theoretically, Yamoja could balance that, but then you add Terra to the mix. It just makes things a lot easier for the Bolts to control the duo lane. I will give it credit, because I know it was mentioned a lot on the desk, though. Looking at the other side, Stewart on this Heimdall, I expect a lot from in the late game. Good damage numbers have usually come out from this player-god combo. I also have to give shout-outs to Inbound, because the 2 and 13, I guess it's technically 2 and 11, win-loss that he has on this Yamoja.
Oh, not
Not
again.
great. Come
Not
on, let me
again.
talk about Bobby!
SOT in danger. The assassin makes his way over, but SOT has lost his path out. His ultimate is down. The chase is on. The ultimate from Awesome Jake, and the damage from Haddix are enough to put him out. Lasbra credited to the kill. That's 3 up for the jungler of the Olympus Bolts. And the Scarabs do not get an inch to breathe on any side of the map.
I just want to say that inbound looks good on Yamoja. That's all I was going to say. They're going for a red buff invade. I don't even know if they can do this just with the way that the pressure is. They clear that fast enough. That is pressure onto where they know they can find control. If you are already controlling the duo lane, Inbound and Stewart have been locked into their tier 1 tower, you've already got a kill in mid lane, and you're probably not going to be able to find many more onto Baronic, then you're going to look for wherever you can find something to capitalize on. And right now, that's solo lane. You get Jake rotating over there as well. I like where the Bolts are putting their pressure just to try and equalize things out. They're also getting a lot of kills on the board for Lasbra, which should help him farm up, get a little bit of gold in his pocket. So far, it's not enough to get a massive lead for him or the team, but it's still something.
We've been seeing some interesting starts nonetheless coming out of players ever since the new patch, and even before this 8.9, we've been seeing some things. How about a Stone of Fall, first item from Inbound out of this support role, where typically we've seen things like Lotus Crown, where you see on the opposite side for Jake, or even Sovereignty, Gauntlet of Thieves, but now we have a Stone of Fall popping out here for Inbound. One of the only Guardians, not the only one, but one of the only Guardians in the game with those ranged basic attacks. I think maybe he can make some decent use out of this item here in the support role.
It's really perplexing, I guess, is that, like, I thought you were going to talk about the Benevolence on the other side. When you started talking about supports, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, Jake's got Lotus Crown. That makes sense. Benevolence on there, but it really is interesting to see Stone of Fall, like you said, just because of the other items that maybe synergize slightly better. But being able to get 3% damage mitigation per stack seems pretty good. Plus, as a stat item, it's not necessarily that bad. Really early on, this, in theory, could help Inbound be a little more proactive. That is helping him get forward up there. Plus, what is it? At 3 stacks, you get double the mitigation and you get 20% CCR. That's probably the big deal, right? 20% CCR is very coveted right now because it got stripped from a lot of the items that had it earlier this year. And so, you know, not having like tank boots anymore, some of the other items that had any kind of cooldown or crowd control reduction have kind of been stripped from you. This should be interesting to watch if Inbound gets out from a stun just slightly early, which with, you know, Haddix playing RDO, Terra on the other side, there's going to be a whole lot of CC that Inbound's going to be happy that he's not getting locked down by.
Jake again back in the duo lane, trying to be a menace towards Stewart. The Dark Portal does so much damage, and the ultimate afterward just guarantees that Jake's able to take him down. A quick pick up against the hunter of the Solar Scarabs, Olympus Bolts. They now got 5 kills to their name here, just 7.5 minutes in, almost close to that 8-minute mark. And well, it's been all action over in that solo lane, but finally we're seeing the fruits pay off here in the duo lane. Olympus Bolts able to strike first on that side of the map, getting their first kill. Always kind of sucks, Barry, you know, having to give that one to Jake, but never going to be too upset giving a kill over to Jake himself, and has gone for this this bracer start, which for a while it seemed that PBM was one of the only ones who was really like kind of the go for, like, yes, let's get this item. Then we saw it a little bit kind of pass back and forth between them. Then it got its buff, and we definitely saw it pop out a lot more. A little bit less often so now.
And it's weird because, again, I think it honestly just comes down to the fact that while it didn't necessarily become worse, there's just so many good relics out there for supports. I mean, the Horrific has been a very popular relic that we've seen a lot more recently. Blink is still up there. You have to look at the way Med has been kind of flowing in. It's not staple, but it's there. I think it hovers around the same areas where like Heavenly Agility is, where sometimes it's worth picking it up, sometimes it's not. And because there's just such a wide variety there, you have to decide what you want early on. That gives you nice little extra ward vision. Plus, after you upgrade it, as well as in these team fights when you're going to look towards the late game, having that little bit of a buff for objectives around like Gold Fury, or realistically, if you're just really, really well positioned for a team fight, it opens things up. I'm going to keep my eye on Jake. Plus, Sentry Ward. There you go. Benefit immediately on a cooldown.
Always a good one to have, especially around these Fire Giant pits. You can only carry 1 sentry in your pocket at a time, but if you have that bracer, you can always have a second one. Maybe even more. Stewart throws out the ultimate and sends Jake through the realm, saying, please get away from my buff. But Barra does manage to secure that one and take it away. Awesome Jake will get to walk away with that buff steal. Taking a look at the gold disparity between them, it's only about 700, even despite all the action that's been taking place. It's 700-800 that the Bolts have in their favor here. 5 kills up to 2 experience. Largely the same across the board. The real disparity you see that is between those dual lane members there. about a half level up for Jake, and about a half level up for Barracuda. Where on the other side, SOT, he's been the primary target here for the Olympus Bolts on the right side of the map, even if Bronic's been taking a little bit of the brunt. But it's SOT who actually has a very slight lead over Haddix, and has gone for a very damage-centric build and get a little bit of extra health. Did go for that Blackthorn Hamper, and then is immediately working on a Soul Eater second item, get a little bit of that lifesteal up in his kit.
Yeah, this is going to be fun to watch because, first off, it's been a while since I've had to watch Suku solo, and so many items have changed since then that it's going to open up a completely different conversation, but also how he transitions into the late game, because there's two ways and paths that I think are really going to be beneficial. Admittedly, you would think full tank, you're filling up a frontliner, but I really like the hybrid option here way more than that, just because you know he's going to be diving. You don't get much of a choice. Your kit, it makes you. So I do want to see Sot still have a build very similar to this. He's going to be just tanky enough to stay alive.
Scream's initiation stopped before the moment he even got a chance. The instant that his blink comes in, Venenu, I'm not sure if it was Venenu predicting that Scream wanted that blink, or if it was just Venenu going for the camp clear, but he's able to stop that one before Scream even had the opportunity to get it going. That blink is now down 2 more minutes, and unfortunate timing there by him. And that sets up the Olympus Bolts to go for Pyromancer. A nice, quick, and easy objective for the boys in blue. They'll grab that one, add a little bit more gold to their pockets, and push that lead just a little bit further. Now 2,000. It was very close earlier, only 7,800. But just in these last couple of minutes, they've been able to bump that one up. 2K gold, 2,500 experience.
And that Pyromancer is like the most likely. The Bolts love going for it because it's so non-committal. I mean, if you lose it, it's not the end of the world compared to like a Gold Fury. And if you get it, it's a nice little benefit, lines your pockets. But it's also not the end of the world. Like, it's not game-changing. It's just a nice little benefit to have going for you. But now it puts him in a position to get a fight going on the left-hand side and try to control the Gold Fury a bit.
A good Riptide by inbound gets him out. I didn't even notice the massive level disparity that we're now having between these two supports. Level 11 versus level 8 inbound. He has not been getting, like, any experience in these last few minutes of play. I mean, he was sitting 8-8 with Awesome Jake, but Jake has been doing nothing but getting that farm.
It's interesting you mentioned that because there was actually a period of time, I was watching him in the jungle. He was just chilling by himself, not near a buff, not looking for a steal, kind of similar to where he's standing right now. And it's mainly because, at least at the time, he was trying to give Stewart a chance to catch up. Stewart had been down about 2 levels and needed a lot of experience, so he was giving him the farm. But that seems to definitely have hurt him, I think, a lot more than maybe anticipated. He's slowed down a whole ton. He's using watchers, so it's not like he's benefiting from being away from his teammates. He really needs to be there. But it seems like they, and rightly so, putting the farm of the carries a little bit higher than his own. But this limbo state that Inbound has been running around in, unfortunately, has cost him a little bit of a level gap. And that, admittedly, is going to make the biggest difference here at level 12 for Jake. You're going to feel a level 9 Yamoja in a lot of these fights and how little the impact, like the heal is going to be a little less, things like that. But realistically, you're going to feel the second relic when Jake gets it a lot more.
And speaking of a relic for Jake, he's already upgraded his bracer, so he'll be sure to get that Sentry Ward online anytime that he needs be. On a 100-second cooldown timer, he'll be able to get a Sentry that he can place just about anywhere you see it right behind them. But again, it's not only a Sentry, it's power if you're over 50% health and movement speed if you're under. So it's a nice little getaway or a nice initiation. It sets up for this Gold Fury nicely. They've got it down to half, but they'll leash it almost right away. Even Haddix is rotated over. Lasbra looking for a pick target here. SOT takes a bit of the damage, but he'll quickly go ahead and shimmy his way on out of the back.
I like the way that this is handled because when you look at it, I'm much more afraid of that being stolen by the Scarabs, and I think you can confirm it on the side of the Bolts.
SOT with the ultimate, and ult from Scream will separate the backliners. Lasbro's low, but his healing from the passive is keeping him alive for a little bit too long. Brandon puts him down, and Venenu finds SOT all alone in the back, but it's inbound dealing with Venenu. He'll take him down with the River's Rebuke. Now it's Jake wheeling away to the backside of the fight. Haddix will scoot himself on out. Solar Scarabs, they come up with a 2-1 trade.
It's a really good set of kills to be able to pick up. You get Lasbra and Vin, 2 massive thorns in your side, and you control them in a way that is going to allow you to farm up. You have a bunch of camps on left and on right that are respawning, so Scream's going to have the time of his life. Also steals some back camps from the jungle. Everybody should be getting some farm to help equalize at least a little bit of that state. And you have to look at where things were going. You had mentioned that the gold lead was starting to approach like this 2K massive, not necessarily massive, but controlling lead for the Bolts. It's back down to the 800 mark where it was earlier. That's not anywhere near the amount of control you would want, plus experience is pretty much even across the board thanks to the camps that you just picked up and shoving back, again, the 2 big problem childs on the other side, children. Now you are in a better spot, I think, for a Gold Fury. And I'm going to say River's Rebuke, whether it's used aggressively like that or to zone people out, is going to give the Scarabs enough of an advantage around things like Gold Fury and Fire Giant that you have to be cautious starting those up if you're the Bolts.
Will be a shell as a second relic picked up by Inbound to go along with that horrific emblem. So a bit of extra shielding, a little bit of extra slows there, just to make sure that he has everything that they might need. Interesting, we don't really see the shell very often, especially kind of since it's nerf. It seems to have somewhat fallen out of favor by a lot of players and by a lot of supports, but we will see it here to kind of try and help them out up against Jake or Haddox. I would have thought maybe it would have been Curse Donk to try to go up against them, but maybe feels that shields are a little bit more valuable. Gold Fury started up by the Bolts. Haddox at the front line to try and zone away Inbound and doing a great job so far, but Inbound can just walk right in. Gold Fury leashed at half health, and maybe that's just because of how much damage Jake and Haddox are taking. The frontliners for the Olympus Bolts starting to get chipped away here by the carries of the Solar Scarabs.
Divine Ruin and Brawler's Beatstick are already available and potentially a little bit more anti-heal. With no Curse Donk available for the Scarabs, all the relics are already locked in and it's not on board. It does mean, and at least worries me slightly, about what Jake and Haddox are going to be able to do in a lot of these late-game team fights. We've seen several times little tiny heals, especially with the Soul Gem coming into it, that have made a big difference. But you also have to look at the team fight engage. I mean, River's Rebuke plus Fear No Evil is so good from the Scarabs.
What a very quick returning Gold Fury pull by the Scarabs, but with Jake showing up, they're kind of half committing to it, maybe looking for the fight. A big stun by Jake, catches two. Gold Fury is falling low. River's Rebuke come out, and that's going to guarantee the Fury. That one goes the way of the Solar Scarabs, but Haddox doesn't want to give it up. A Riptide from Inbound might be the one that stops that, and the Golden Apple thrown by Bronic doesn't hit anybody, but it also makes sure that nobody walks forward through that pit of the jungle. Solar Scarabs come up, and now for the first time this game, take the gold lead.
And they do a great job there as well. They use the two ults that are not only good initiators, but really good exactly at what they did. We are going to make it hell for you to get in here. You have to blink forward to the Gold Fury to get over the wall, and then on top of that, you have to then deal with the Fear No Evil. You don't want to drop your beads and your blink just to try and make sure things stay in your favor. So Sot as well being able, or I'm sorry, Haddox having to make some awkward decisions does keep one of those relics online, but it opens up to show exactly the way I think that we should see control from the Scarabs go. Maybe not going to be around every objective. Pyromancer's been taken twice by the Bolts now and has good control there. But when you look at it, and we mentioned the experience a little bit earlier, the kill that Inbound got specifically onto Venenu might have been the most important kill of this game because he was 2-3 levels down, and now he's on par with where we see Jake. And that has helped out immensely in these last couple of fights.
Yeah, that one little fight over there really did turn this back around for the Scarabs. They're still down just a little bit in gold even after that Fury. It's about 900 to the Bolts, getting that Tier 1 tower and a Pyromancer to boot off of there. Was able to at least spike that one back up in their favor, but it's not too much. 1,000 gold, 18 minutes in. That's not really all that. Experience still being relatively dead even across the board. No real level leads aside from Scream about half level him, Barracuda half level over Stewart, but it's Scream who starts up the fight. Also Jake pushed away by the Fear No Evil. The Golden Apple off the mark by Baronic, and that might be just enough for Jake to try and get out of here. Riptide not going to yank him back, and instead it's going to push the rest of his team. Awesome Jake may have just been able to survive because of that one missed apple by Baronic, and might be able to even turn this fight back around. It's Inbound. Feared out, slowed down, and Barracuda picks him up. Baronic under the tower gets bursted by Lasbrov from almost dead to turning it all back. Jake and the Bolts get two.
That was nuts the way Jake survives that. First off, uses the med. He did pick that up for his second relic, but also good use of his ult, good use of his double dash, the root, the works that come through. If that Golden Apple from Baronic connects, that play is not able to happen, but Jake being able to live, that just slight off the mark ultimate from the Scarabs make it so much easier for him to not only live through it, but then turn around, set up a lot of damage. Wind Demon was just finished for Para. He gets a lot to throw out there. And also had to throw out the damage that we are seeing out of Venenu. He has been putting in quite a bit of work. And all of a sudden, what felt like it was going back and forth and even, I mean, that just skews so heavily in favor of the Bolts. That was a beautiful play. But look at the Fire Giant.
Fire Giant started by the Scarabs,
No
almost
way.
at half health just from SOT and Scream alone. Now that Stewart's rotated, and a very slow response time
They
for the
see
Bolts.
Barra.
Barracuda has found
Then sees
Inbound. Venenu is here to try and maybe steal this one away. The Fire Giant low. The River's Rebuke come out. The Solar Scarabs get the FG. Scream's able to make it out. Barracuda trying to hunt him down to see if he can find him, but Stewart's the one who grabs an SOT with the Piercing Moonlight. Used the Riptide as a means of getting out after only a single teleport to Haddox. Baronic now is dealing with Lazarus, throws out the Golden Apple and hits him. and everybody on the Solar Scarabs are trying to find a warpath out, and they do manage to do so. Fire Giant snuck away by the Scarabs. They're able to get that cheeky little play and put themselves right back in it.
Look, I'm going to have to give Kings credit because the Kings still have my favorite Fire Giant call, I think, of this weekend. But that one is almost there. If that goes slightly better in a fight afterward where maybe they pick up Venenu as well as Bera, then that probably takes the cake. That is a really good call from the Scarabs, recognizing that they're falling behind, they're losing pressure on the map. That Fire Giant does two things. One, gives them a lot of opportunities. There's 5 towers still standing for the Bolts. There's a lot of gold just in that they're going to be able to scoop up. Not only are they going to have it there, they're going to have it for this Oni Fury. So a lot of neutral objectives that they're going to be able to swing in their favor as well. But the biggest thing is the Bolts can't get it. It doesn't matter. If you lose the next fight, the Bolts have nothing to follow up with other than maybe a couple of towers, and that is going to be a saving grace. It won't be an end state for them just yet, although you do have to worry with an exposed Phoenix, so you want to try and make things a little more equal for you. You've got Stuart with a Fire Giant, the rest of your team grouping up, and things are mostly even. This is a great spot for the Scarabs.
It seems like the Bolts are willing to try and make a defense here at this Tier 2. The frontliners are right up at the forefront of it. Venenu gets a nice little heal back with that Soul Gem, so he'll be topped back to full health. The Solar Scarabs are slowly gathering around. Look at Lasper's positioning. Wants to try and make a pincer around the backside if he can. Scream himself is waiting around that wall for a chance to blink over, for a chance to maybe get that somersault and get that Fear No Evil, but it's very slow, very patient play by both of these teams, waiting for that minion wave to come in. Haddox will try and slow the minions from making their way in the tower with this Fire Giant. It only takes a few seconds if Stuart can get in there, try and throw some damage, but it's Inbound who's stuck in the middle of the tower. Lasbra sneaking around that backside, but no further initiation just yet.
And I like the way they're playing this. Look at Lasbra just hanging around. This is very patient, but there's a ward that will catch him. Actually, I think he might have been caught at this point. Yeah, he's been pinging that thing left and right. So they know he's there. They know he's waiting. And it's just going to be how they retaliate to when he does engage.
Inbound under the tower. Double slow. One on Scream, one on Inbound. The Fear No Evil pushes Haddox away, and the Golden Apple whiffs right through the uprights. And Lasbra, that's his call to go right in. Ultimate slams right into Inbound. Jake gets the credit for the kill. The Rivers Rebuke crash onto nobody. And Lasbra and Haddox are able to make it out. Jake diving in the back line. Stun, forces the beads out of SOT. And a quick retreat from the Scarabs, but it's an even quicker engage and a reinitiation here by the Bolts.
And I love this pathing from Jake. He's going to be able to cut them off a little bit faster. He's got the CC they need. They might be able to turn this fight around, but the Scarabs want to go back in.
SOT with the Piercing Moonlight right against Barracuda. Haddox is caught out. Stewart gets the credit for it. Barracuda goes down to the damage from Veronica. Now Lasbra's low. Awesome Jake slowed down by the Caltrops. But without that massive front line, without that big beef out of the Solar Scarabs, they're not quite willing to dive under this Tier 2 tower. They'll get their picks, but that's all they're going to get here.
Honestly, with the crit that Barra has online, if he lives a little longer, that is easy kill territory. The healing, though, even though it's slight when you don't necessarily have it. It's all Fire Giant region right now without Yamoja around. Still just fine. Now you're going to be able to get the Oni Fury. You don't get the tower. Admittedly, if you're looking at the grand scheme of this Fire Giant, it is not getting as much as it physically could, which is a big win for the Bolts. But that is a good fight from the Scarabs. Being able to re-engage right there, you had kind of highlighted it. You see the lack in presence of having an assassin in the solo lane. You don't necessarily have that second tanky body. Despite the fact that this is a pretty tanky build and he's got a lot of health, still assassin scaling and assassin protections and things like that. And so it is going to take a lot less to kill off Solo or Troll if he's diving a Tier 2. Than it would say for something like the Emoja or the Artio or the Terra on the other side. But they get a great fight right there, showcases that their damage turnaround is nothing to scoff at. Stuart just now finishes his crit items online as well. And despite the fact that they've lost the Fire Giant, admittedly only get themselves maybe a few thousand gold and pull the lead just barely in their favor, I think the Scarabs did a good job to swing around what they had to work with.
A little bit of a call here by the Scarabs. They send Scream to get the Pyromancer. The rest of the team make sure the Tier 1 tower in mid is gone. They looked at Tier 2, but they're not going to go for it. Fire Giant has worn off. We're just a few seconds from that one coming right back down on the map. Solar Scarabs, they'll make a quick little back for a few of their players to pick up some potential key items out of it. Jungle's gone back. Tier 1 Morningstar, most importantly, Hunter's Cowl maxed out here for Stuart, so he'll finally get his starter item fully online and upgraded. Ready for the next fight. Does have that slight little step up over Barracuda because of it. But Barracuda right behind him. Same exact build for both of them so far. But Barracuda's relics, a little bit worse for wear here. About 30 more seconds until those beads are back up. That's the most important thing here for Barra in this next fight.
The good news for the Bolts, And the bad news for the Scarabs. Last time, Scarabs, first off, they're going to be on this, so they have defensive positioning in the Fire Giant pit. And they're starting that thing much quicker than I thought they were going to. I was going to say the Bolts are going to be ready for the fight, but I don't even know.
It is melting. Fear No Evil pushes Jake out, but Haddix is here. He's not able to take the Fire Giant away, and he eats a Golden Apple, and a River's Rebuke to zone him out, but it's Lasper in the backline. Volcanic Lightning in the middle of 3. He's getting some good damage against Stewart, but the crits are just too much. Stewart turns it around and takes him down. Barracuda in danger by SOT, who used the fadeaway to get over the wall. SOT so tanky, but Scream finds Benenu. Barracuda needs to find a way in, but he just can't get the damage that he's looking for. Scream slams him with the overhead smash of the auto after Scream kicks up the double kill. Haddix is low and being pincered by the rest of the team. The Bear has nowhere left to go. It's SOT who puts him down.
I think you go through the tier 2. I think you run through the Phoenix. You've got 30 seconds without Lasper, 30 seconds in a 1v5. I think the Scarabs take this game.
Scarabs. Tier 2 tower down.
You gotta go
Phoenix
faster.
Standing. You've only got 2 towers up, and you've got 20 seconds until Lazarus back. It's only Jake to defend, and he's getting all that health right back. To the throne room they go. They've got 13 seconds to try and do it. Jake is holding them out as much as he can. Fear No Evil will push him away, but not quite take him down. Tighten down to half, and that's going to be game number 1. Going to the Solar Scarabs and get one more off the tail end, and a nice little deicide to round out game 1 for the Scarabs.
I don't know how many game 1s the Scarabs have won this year.
I think
something
that's the first.
I want to go. That's the first in recent memory. They have not had a lot of success in the initial game of every set. That is a huge play. All built around that Fire Giant. Really good. Like, again, doesn't amass them this massive amount of gold, but they get an Oni Fury. They get a lot of control, and they showcase that they can turn fights around. They controlled Barracuda really well in the last couple of engagements and forced him to make these awkward decisions. His damage just wasn't able to be applied to anybody, at least not enough to make a big difference. And now all of a sudden we're getting a good peek of the Scarabs. I'm actually really happy I voted for them now. I thought they were going to be okay. I thought it was going to be a 3-game set. That was a good win.
That's a good start up here for the Solar Scarabs. Can they continue that and maybe get a little bit of that luck of that game 2 win that they're so accustomed to? We'll find out here right after the break.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
last time the Solar Scarabs won a Game 1 was all the way back in Phase 2, Week 8. They have just won their first Game 1 of Phase 3, and they are in their 6th set. And so the Solar Scarabs making some history here against the Olympus Bolts. Of course, we do have some notable combinations in history. Chocolate and peanut butter, Dave and Miff, yin and yang. Mouse pads and joggers come to mind as well, and you can get yourself a pair of those at shop.smiteproleague.com.
Damn, he's good.
All 8 teams branded with the joggers. And look, it's the perfect time of year. We all know what I want to say at this part, but I've been told not to say it. But mouse pads and joggers, a great combination for this fine fall weather. If you want to stay in game or you want to go out in game, all the options are there for you at shop.smiteproleague.com, furnished, of course, by our friends over at the Insight Apparel Company. So shout-outs to them and shout-outs to shop.smiteproleague.com and all the cool gear that you've got there. Of course, headlined by the most notable combo of all time, mouse pads and joggers. The second most notable combo of all time, Dolson and Mifflin on the desk. So it's kind of a 3 combo. You, me, desk is what all comes together here. We'll break down game number 1 here. And this one, Miff, then history is made a little bit here in Phase 3. The Solar Scarabs finally find a way to break through their Game 1 curse.
And here's the thing about how in Phase 3 they've only ever lost a singular Game 2. So we'll see if the Bolts can make a little bit of history on the other end. But you're right, man. The Solar Scarabs come out ahead inside of this one. Early game presence to be sure, but maybe more so the macro play is what impresses inside of Game 1. 2 phenomenal Fire Giant pools. Nets them a couple of siege attempts that puts the Olympus Bolts off balance, and it felt like the Bolts weren't allowed to play proactively post the first Fire Giant. Before that, they were doing pretty all right.
I mean, gold-wise, you're even here, but kill-wise, the Bolts are ahead, and you're right, Miff. It's these Fire Giant pulls that just work out so well for the Solar Scarabs. They get the FG, and then they get out alive, and that's what's pivotal. You make these aggressive calls. You got to be able to get the objective and then get out with minimal casualties on the other end. It did end up being Tsukiyomi solo, Scream on the Hunbat side of the jungle. And Miff,
So
we're starting to see why this pick is higher prioritized. Not only does the build synergize, and that is a high damage build from Scream, 308 out of the jungle. The only one who didn't die here in this game is Scream. But now, you know, the utility's always been there for Hunbats, but finally the damage is a little bit clearer with the way that Mace Tree looks, and Scream, a facilitator through and through for this team, looked great here in Game 1.
He really did. That's considering that he had a rough start, considering that Lazarus gets off to like a, 20-second first blood in this one and never really slowed down until we started to see some of those groupings from the Solar Scarab. So Scream had a tall task trying to play catch-up throughout the early game, but didn't seem like it really slowed him down, did it?
Yeah, don't want to play mustard.
Damage put out there, a ton of CC. I would argue some of the best ultimates on Hunbots that we've seen here inside the phase. I think there was like 2 4-man engagements started off by Scream with that Fear No Evil. It's clean stuff, and maybe making an argument to start banning it out against this guy.
You want to go to picks and bans, Miff?
You know what? Hold on. Yeah, all right, I'll do that now.
All right, sweet. Let's go to picks and bans for game number 2. Thanks to Miff for giving us the A-OK to move into P's and D's for game 2. Bolts find themselves back in that first pick slot. And remember, you look back, some of the conversations we had were around, do you take the Sylvanas away from inbound? How do you prioritize this front line? The Solar Scarabs had similar questions to answer as well. And you left open the Umoja, which grabs another win here for inbound. And so 2-13 or 2-11,
3-13.
3-13,
3-14.
3-14.
Nailed it.
Now becomes the slash line, but all that matters is that you get a win here in your most recent game. So some comfort for inbound maybe returning on this Umoja pick. And so I think that does put the Bolts in a bit of a unique spot here. Do you continue to take away the Sylvanas? Well, the answer is yes.
You do, but last time it was also the Geb banned out by the Bolts inside of this one. Could switch it up and try and toss that towards the Umoja, but I don't think I'd rather play against Geb, so instead maybe just going to try and reprise the exact same bans we saw last time around. Solar Scarab saying, hey, you got to do it yourself. We're not going to be the ones to ban it this time. But the Olympus Bolts inside of the first pick position do have the potential to leave at least one of them up and just strip it away, utilizing that first pick as another ban.
Geb banned out by the Bolts, so we're going to stick the same as we did in game 1, at least up to this point. How about some respect on Stewart here as well? The Uller immediately banned out. Right, for the Stuhler, if you want to get real specific here.
And I do.
Banned out in back-to-back games, game 1 and game 2. Nike off the table. Solar Scarabs don't want to play against that one, so it was Ardio left open as the eyebrow raiser, and yet again, Ardio left open, and yet again, RDO will get picked.
So the Solar Scarabs could just go ahead and try and pick those exact same 2 picks that we saw last time around, but we could also see maybe some mid-lane priority here. I mean, Raijin has been completely dominant still. Tiamat seems to have fallen off the face of the planet, going unpicked and unbanned for the most part, but Yamoja is still available. Bobby has a great performance on it in Game 1. If the Solar Scarabs are worried about being able to get that Hun bots again, they could also take that pretty high up in the priority order. But as of right now, the Bolts aren't showing too much of their hand. And now with PBM piloting RDO inside of the last set, we could make a clear argument that there's some flex potential here. I'm not going to, because I think it is likely headed for the Soul Lane, but we could.
You could see it.
You could.
So you did, in a way, make the argument.
I did.
You didn't lay out the facts, but
Not
you
a
did
single
say
time.
that is a possibility. So you are going to prioritize the Heimdall again for Stu, but you're sticking with Discordia a little bit earlier on in the draft here if you're the Solar Scarabs. So both of your carries locked in. Is there ever a downside to this, Myth? I mean, you get some of the priority carries for your team, but are you revealing too much of how your backline wants to operate too early on?
Now Lazar can say, hey man, I'm just going to go ahead and pick something counter to these 2 carries, and I would argue Susano probably feels pretty good right here if the Bolts so choose. Bifrost, you have to stand inside of that crystal for a little while before you're able to utilize that teleport. Pull him out with Susano. Discordia teleports away, or jumps away rather, hides inside of a stealth. Yeah, Susano's pulls the entire size of that as well. So maybe an opportunity for the Bolts to go with that pick inside of this slot, but it's not something that I closely associate with Lazara. Obviously capable of playing that pick, no stranger to it. Okay, man. How you going to do me like that, bro? I just said Tiamat has been getting ignored in the SPL.
No, but look, well, you're not wrong. I mean, what is that, 78% pick ban rate? It was a lot higher when Tiamat first came out. You're
100%.
You're not wrong. It is decreased in priority, Tiamat has. There is great bounce back potential for you here, Mifflin, if the Susano gets picked. I would argue even I'll give you love if it also gets banned, if it picked
please.
or banned. If the Scarabs ban it away or it gets picked, you are right back on track here, regardless of Tiamat getting picked up. A small call from Mifflin there as well as Hunbats. You mentioned if you want to prioritize that again, you can do that earlier on here in the draft. Assassin picked, not the Susano here, so one of your avenues back into success off the table. But jokes aside about the Susano specifically, it's a very important pick now for Lasbra. The Pele was able to find some pressure early, didn't quite find that same success down the stretch in the game, and so through the first 3 Myth, the Solar Scarabs have given carries and initiation. There you go, Myth.
Let's go.
Love that. All right, so Mifflin right back on track here. Susano taken away, and that's actually a decent knock. I mean, jokes aside, Mifflin calling it whatever, that would have been a great pick into Heimdall and Discordia. So now Lazarus got to look somewhere else.
Yeah, Lazarus might go towards something like the Surcat inside of. Why am I going to keep guessing Lazarus' pick, right? Well, let's let Lazarus show us what he can do on his own. Please.
You're not guessing. You're saying here are picks.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Would
I'm laying
work
out
well.
options.
This is how analysis works.
Are you serious? That's what it is.
Here are some things
Aggro told me I had to be right.
If you make a definitive statement, it needs to be right.
Okay. If
you say Lasbra is going to pick Camazotz here in this game, you got to say it and you got to be right.
Okay, well, maybe I'm just not going to take a stance. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Why would I? Kepri locked in for the Solar Scarabs here, adding a little bit of annoyance to the draft on the side of the Scarabs. And now the all-in engaged potential of Hun bots will have that added safety net of Scarabs Blessing on the other side. Bolts now get to go look towards their jungle pick. I'm thinking Surcat. I think Camazotz a pretty good guess as well. Surcat maybe a little bit easier to perform on this time around, as that ultimate will afford you a little bit of additional CC immunity inside of that Fear No Evil, but we'll see which way the Bolts elect to go with it this time around.
Hard to ever argue against Kepri, Myth. I think
wouldn't.
Kepri has made its way to the forefront of the conversation. Mifflin wouldn't ever argue against it.
Why would I?
I'm not sure, Myth. Not sure why you would. There's still a lot available. It is Camazotz for Lasbury. You should have called it when you had the opportunity to do so. Do you like the jungle?
Should have known.
Do you like the jungle pick into what the Solar Scarabs have drafted?
I do. You've got great survivability, 4 seconds essentially of damage immunity with Bat Out of Hell. I mean, you're able to just press it every single time this Hunbots is using Fear No Evil. It's actually got a pretty decent startup time, so you can just reactionary use it to avoid that fear every single bit of the way. But that damage output being so one note now from this jungler, he doesn't really have any forms of CC outside of the slow from Vampiric Bats, meaning that he is all in engage against a team composition that has a Kepri on the other side. All that single target damage very easily to immune out with the Scarab's Blessing.
Wow, we're sticking with it, huh? Tsukiyomi solo back again for SOT. There was kill pressure early on in this game. Looked all right against the RDO. Surprised at all, Miff, that we're going back to it for the Scarabs.
They won, didn't they? Do it again, bro. Run that.
All right.
Run them hands.
So in your world,
it's a binary scale.
Right. If you win, play it
It's
again.
good. Yeah.
If not, then there's no chance for adjustments
Look,
from the Bolts here.
I actually can't take credit for that, Dave. I think it was ancient philosopher Plato that said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, Tsukiyomi Solo ain't broke, therefore don't fix. Rebuttal.
Yeah, you're right. Man, Miff is tiring.
I'm on one. I'm on the right train.
Plato also has a never mind. That's a horrible joke, and I'm not even going to commit to it. Tsukiyomi, Khepri, Hunbats, Discordia, Heimdall. That'll be your Solar Scarabs look at a Game 2 win. This is a team that has won every Game 2 they've played, minus the Oni Warrior set so far in this phase. But I think similar vibes to what we gave the Bolts in Game 1. It is hard to argue against an RDO, Terra, Tiamat top 3 pick.
Yeah, great counter-engage potential, late-game win condition inside of the Tiamat, an early-game bridge with Camazotz having that damage output, and now a little bit of additional safety with Hachiman inside of that Hunter role, so that CC immunity from his ultimate. Probably going to find some mileage up against this CC-heavy draft of the Solar Scarabs, be it the Cripple from the Golden Apple, the repeated fears of Fear No Evil, the Abduct from Khepri, a lot of great ways to lock down individual targets, and that's not even taking into account Heimdall's ultimate or Tsukiyomi's ability to close gap. I think if the Bolts are able to approach the late game phase from even and don't allow the Solar Scarabs to get some pretty cheeky Fire Giants pulls, could be a better look for them in Game 2.
Feels like that's something we've seen a little bit here this weekend, are almost sneaky FG pulls that end up winning the game. Happened in the Jade Dragon set earlier on this weekend, happens in game number 1 here. And I think if you're a Scarabs fan, that gives you some excitement. You're out of the running for one of those top 2 picks, but a team that has adjusted to be more aggressive on calls like that in the mid-game is a scary team to face. Can the Solar Scarabs win Game 2 against the Bolts? We'll go to J-Mac and Gore to find out.
They broke their Game 1 curse. As highlighted by Dave there on the desk, it's been since Phase number 2, Week 8, their last set of Phase 2 that they won a Game 1. They do it here in today's set. Now, they've got to repeat the history of winning those Game 2s. It's J-Mac and Gore with Doug on the camera to bring us all the action here on the Battleground. Inbound, when we talk about kind of stranger things that he was starting out with last time, he went with the Stone of Fall. This time he's going to go with a meditation, not something we typically see on the Khepri. It's been a lot more so on some of those healer supports that we've been seeing this item picked up as a first relic.
Yeah, but honestly, especially with the passive shield that Khepri's going to help accrue, not only for himself, but probably for Stuart once they join up in lane, it's going to be a nice little cushion, a nice little window where Bera's not going to be able to get a good amount of damage. Same thing for Jake. They were dominating this lane last time around. What was it, Terra Izanami that was controlling it? And so while Hachiman maybe slows that down a little bit, I think they're still going to be able to push back the Scarabs much like they are now.
Jake is not going to let up. He'll go right for Stuart, right for the throat, man. Just immediately trying to go gung-ho up against this Scarabs roster, but it's Inbound and Stuart who have the lane pressure. An immediate route by Inbound puts Jake under that Tier 1 tower, and we get to see pretty much a repeat here in the solo lane. In fact, it's almost an entire repeat here from the Scarabs. The only thing that changed out was the emoji for a Khepri.
Yeah.
Man, what a god to get a trade out for. Oh no, I don't get to play emoji. We saw, like 4 frontliners banned away, and somehow Khepri was the one that still made it out through all of those picks and bans. Nice little pick here. Get the OG Solar Scarab himself here for the team. Start out in the dual lane, they'll at least keep a little bit of parity comparatively to last game where they were sitting under Tier 1 tower the entire time. They at least get to sit at the middle of the map this game.
At least going par neutral overall. I'm excited to watch this, though, because it feels... I was looking it up when they mentioned it, but, like, Yamoja getting banned against the Scarabs has happened the same amount of times that the Scarabs have played Yamoja. And it's not a lot. So it's 14 for each of those, 28 times total that she showed up against them, which is about a third of their games total, maybe a little more. It's interesting to see this switch because I feel like this is maybe not a better pick overall for Inbound, considering the control that Yamoji can bring, the healing that she can bring. But Khepri's ult's just good.
Addix and Lasber with the early 2v2 scuffle. SOT is low. The stun is jumped over by Lasber and quick beads. SOT goes down first, but Lasber's in danger. Scream misses the somersault, and the minions are holding Lasber alive. The heal from the Vampire Bats is just enough. Addix and Lasber team up and take the first early kill, a double for Lasbra. Barracuda low on the other side, but so is inbound. Good stun from Awesome Jake, but Stewart is zoning for his support to make sure to keep him out, but Bolts strike first on the right side.
And 2 kills at that. You shut down 2 big targets last time around. That's where the Scarabs started their kills. And now, yeah, Peranic's in trouble. He needs to play this safe. He should still be able to get his red buff that he dropped there, although Vin's playing Guardian over it. I really like the way that the Bolts play that. And admittedly, they do it just in time. They're about 0.3 seconds away, something like that, for that animation to play on the overhand smash. I mean, Scream is about to turn around a lot of damage onto them, and they are just in time to shut him down. And that is just really good collapse from them. They've got Guardian scaling, Kamazot's healing, and they recognize where the body blocks are. I mean, look at how many hits at the beginning didn't touch on to Lasbra. And then, of course, using the minions around them. It's right as he goes up a second, and then he goes down before it's too late. He's not able to get that ability off. And that's the thing that I think, again, is really crucial for them. Otherwise, he gets at least 1 back. That's a good first blood to pick up if you're the Bolts.
Probably the most important part of that little team fight there was Haddix was the first one to hit Scream whenever they were fighting inside those minions. Otherwise, it could have been disaster for the assassin.
Yeah,
A little bit of physical protection for Haddix might pay in dividends for him. SOT uses the piercing moonlight, but he'll only bounce back and forth between the two of them inside the midst of them. Lasbra needs the bat out of hell to finish out the fight, and he'll get it with just that first swipe. 3 up for the Bolts early on, establish a very early gold lead, about 700-800 that they've got to their name so far. But Scream is here, wants to make something happen on the other side of the map, and they'll rotate over, get a nice Fear No Evil against Jake, and push him right up into the middle of the team fight. Barracuda has just to sit back and watch as his support falls.
Consolation prize of a Guardian. I mean, you still get a kill. Feels good if you're the Scarabs to pick that up. Maybe not where you wanted it to go for inbound to pick it up, but I think at the end of the day, the kill's the kill, and that's what they really wanted. Downside is the Bolts have this mentality right now of, okay, you'll do 22k damage against the Tsukuyomi solo, we'll treat you to the special after effects in Game 2. We will not let you live early on. And again, 2 unanswered kills so far on that side of the map isn't the end of the world, but it is definitely not a comfortable position. You should start to feel a little bit of that gold lead from Haddix, as well as the level lead starting to show its way, although I say that, Scream's actually, or sorry, Solar Troll's the first one to hit level 6 out of the 2 of them, which I'll admit was unexpected by me, which just goes to show that despite the fact that they've shut him down, he's not losing out on too much farm.
Jake wants to try and get something going here again. It's a 3 versus 2. Scream leaps away, but SOT doesn't have the same luxury. Stuck in the middle of 3 and burned down quickly. Haddix gets the credit for the kill, puts his first one on the board. 1-0-3 for him, 3-0-1 for Lasbra. Both of them been a part of all 4 of these kills, because all 4 of those kills have been on this right side. It was the early 2v2, and now these constant little 1v1s that are going their way are these little, I can't even say 1v1s, it's been a 2v2, 3v3, 3v2 in this last one. All this action focused on SOT and trying to shut him down. But you highlighted just a moment ago, even with all these deaths, SOT's been able to at least maintain some relevancy in the experience department.
Yeah, he was fine just a second ago. Now you're starting to see the lead for Haddix. I guess it was just 3. That's the magic number. I should have known that. It's been drilled into me by Schoolhouse Rock since I was a kid. So it makes way more sense that he does get killed off that 3rd time, and now things are starting to tick over in favor of the RDO. And that should open up some avenues, but admittedly, I still see a lot of good in the Scarabs team fight. Losing the River's Rebuke is a big deal compared to having that plus Fear No Evil, now really just having Fear No Evil. You're going to have to do a lot more fighting as opposed to just zoning. That's going to hurt the Bolts. And so that is going to make things a little more pre-planned, I guess, from the Scarabs. It's going to be more fight-focused. And it'll make things maybe a little heavier-handed for Sot at this point. He's 2 levels down, the gold's going to start showcasing it, but at some point he's going to have that damage and that survivability, and he's still an assassin, so you can bet he's going to be diving deep, but Lasbra's good at getting away, Haddix and Jake are tanks, Vin is a tankier target, Tiamat's good at self-peel and staying alive, and then Barracuda has great self-peel in this game, and so it feels like the Bolts are going to have a lot more of a chance to deal with this Tsukuyomi just by merits of the composition, let alone the fact that they got a lead.
Lasbra misses everything on inbound, so he'll be able to walk away. And they're all setting up because this blue buff is coming back, and that's where the target of aggression has been for the Bolts. They want this blue buff, or maybe they just want SOT. Who knows? Maybe it's a little of both. Haddix will immediately dive against SOT and put him under the Tier 1 tower and leave Scream and inbound to try and secure this buff and maybe try and go for a steal away. It will be secured, and now Scream can go on the back
that's a
line.
good
Fear No
Evil.
Evil finds 3, force the beads on 2 of them, and an ultimate from SOT forced him in the back line, but he's not in the position that he wants to be. Lasbra, credit to the kill.
Come on, you
Jake
gotta
is
get
low,
one.
but Scream, he can't find the distance. He can't get in there in time. A Scarab's Blessing on top will not be enough to save his life. It'll fade away, and so will Scream's life. Lasbra in the back line with the back out of hell. Does some good damage, but not going to be enough to take down inbound of Baronic. 2 more kills for the Olympus Bolts.
That's just a clean fight from the Bolts. Not only good control for the engage, despite a good Fear No Evil, not enough follow-up, not enough damage. Jake gets tunnel visioned on by Scream, and then they just play it patiently. Sot goes way too deep, unfortunately, just by merits of his ult. Has no way to disengage and gets caught out. And then inbound does throw the ult out to help Scream. And the Bolts just say, cool, we'll just wait till it's gone. We don't need you to res him. We'll just kill him while he stays here, tries to get some damage down, hopes somebody hits him. And ultimately, they just get themselves even more kills. Again, clean fight for them. Lasber's got 4 of the kills as well. So you know he's feeling very confident in his capabilities right here. And this Camazotz is making a huge splash.
100% kill participation on this god. Scream is able to steal away those Oracle Harpies from Venenu. Got some good damage on it, but ultimately it is Scream who takes those away. Gets some vision on that Gold Fury while Barracuda tries to get some pressure against this Draugr. He'll be able to clear that one away by himself. Doesn't need any assistance on there, and he'll make sure to put that on the board for his team. Actually, he walked away from it. SOT is taking quite a bit of poke here again. He's not having a whole lot of fun now. He got to have the time of his life in game number 1. But Lasbro will immediately dive against Scream. Scream doesn't have a somersault, has the Fear No Evil, finds a way over the wall, and Lasbro will chase him down. Bat out of Hell's not ready. Lasbro will take quite a lot of damage from the tower. Scream is playing with a little bit of fire here. Baronic in the middle of 2 inside of his own tier 1 tower. He'll throw out the golden apple. It'll tap Awesome Jake, but that's about all it will do, is tap that support. Baronic gets to live. But walking up to that lane, maybe a death sentence. Venenu is right around the corner. Inbound blocks some of the damage to leap in from Venenu. And the knock-up off the mark. Mid laner Baronic, he'll get to live to see another day.
I like the scaling for both of these teams as we go into late game, although I will say again, Artio, Terra, and Tiamat is a very deadly 3 for the Bolts. The Scarabs are going to have to deal with that, especially when things like that are just off the mark. I mean, Lazar maybe isn't completely dead if you connect on that pull, but it's definitely going to help. As bad out of hell gets forced here. It's going to be the question of the carries. I think Stewart did a lot towards the late game. Tsukuyomi as well. Here for Sot did a lot towards the late game. This is definitely starting to enter a period of try to counter punch, maybe not go for the punch if you're the Scarabs, as things are not necessarily falling too far out of hand. I mean, it's just small little level leads that are in the jungle and the solo lane. And admittedly, both of those players, while they're good, aren't going... Well, that's not true. Lasberg has been dictating the pace of this game. But Artio, theoretically, shouldn't be dictating too much this early on. So you should still have some wiggle room to work with.
It's 2,000 gold, less than 1,000 experience that the Bolts have over the Solar Scarabs. And man, Scream was doing everything he could to force that bat out of hell out of Lasberg. You saw how long he forced him to stick around in that last little fight. Jumps over the wall, gets the blink, and it felt like he was just daring Lasberg, like, come on, use that ultimate. Finally, he was able to team up with inbound and get that one burned away, but Lasberg will have that ult back up very shortly. That Jotun's Wrath online for both of these junglers means that 20% CDR is just going to ever so slightly tick those ultimates up just a little bit sooner. And see, Lasberg's already very close to having it back up. Scream does have it, and he's trying to find a target here very soon. Jake and Venenu are right in their sights. Jake all by himself, with Venenu sitting a little bit further away. But with all this attention paid over here in this mid lane against Venenu and Jake, they've kind of just left this Pyromancer all alone. The Olympus Bolts are able to pick that one up with no problem at all.
The gold lead is a lot bigger, but this is very similar to the way the last game started. And so I'm not going to write it off too much just yet. But I will say the scare, again, it's once you factor in, it's difficult for some reason for me to trade in where this Khepri is going to fit in compared to where the Emoji fit in. The Emoji just did so much work and created a lot of opportunities and really stripped away opportunities from the Bolts that made it feel worthwhile for the Scarabs. So watching what inbound does with mighty, mighty interest as to whether or not he's going to make the same impact, because the Bolts are in a good position. They're going to get the Oracle Harpies. And honestly, again, outside of the fact that they have lack of confirmation on their team, objectives should be scared. I think their burn potential is pretty high.
Inbound drops a ward right at the Gold Fury, just in case the Bolts decide to try and pull that one in a sneaky attempt. Similar to what the Scarabs did in Game 1 with the Fire Giant, able to make nice little clever pulls and really force the hand of the Scarabs, but now it might be the Bolts. The Scarabs force the hand of the Bolts. Now maybe the Bolts try and force the hand of the Scarabs here at the Gold Fury. A rotation from Haddix means that it's a 5-man group up from both these teams, because even Scream and SOT have come over. Awesome J gets pulled back in by Inbound. It's a Fear No Evil to hold him off. Stewart strikes first in, but it's a quick revive out of Inbound. Gets Scream out of danger. The Cyclone chases him down, but doesn't get him. It's a knock-up against Inbound, and a nice kill for Barracuda. Lasbra in the bat out of hell wants something more, and Scream is the one who's low. Haddix chases him all the way to the depths of the Tier 2 tower to take him down. It's 2 swings so far for Bolts, but SOT's not quite willing to give this up just yet.
You need something big to happen here. You've lost support for support, but your jungler has not been traded out. You at least want 1 kill on the other side. Looks like they might get it.
Oh,
no,
not
Haddix is
enough.
out. No way. 30 HP. And he walks away from that. The Scarabs, look, I'm not going to say this is falling completely out of their hands, but you feel that one now. You're starting to feel the level discrepancy. You're starting to mainly feel the gold discrepancy between these two teams. And the team fight potential that the Bolts have just seems to just outstand the Scarabs here. You're going to need a lot more. Once again, coming out of the jungle, it was a great Fear No Evil, but there wasn't a lot of follow-up, so maybe that's on Baronic, maybe that's on Stewart. I don't know where they need to look. They also need a little more survivability. Scream gets caught out, unfortunately, by Haddix. Inbound gets locked down after he throws out his ult. It was just easy pickings for the Bolts.
Right back to the Gold Fury. Inbound, the first one here for the Scarabs, but he's the only one here for the Scarabs. Baronic is being pushed away by Lasbra. Inbound is going to try and do it all on his own, but Haddix will make sure to zone him away. Gold Fury this time will go to the Olympus Bolts with little to no effort needed. Haddix is doing a good job of playing zone. There's a blue buff on the right-hand side, but they're not really concerned about that. Maybe the rest of the jungle being stripped out can be a little bit of a concern. 3,300 gold, but the experience dead even here. Olympus Bolts, sure, they're getting these gold leads, but they're not pressing their levels anywhere. In fact, SOT has a slight level lead over Haddix now, despite being down that level and a half earlier on. Those 3, now 4 deaths to his name doesn't seem to have slowed down his momentum quite enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's 0-4-1, 0-3-2 for Scream. You would expect them to not necessarily be the ones impacting a whole ton. And it has, I mean, admittedly, it's slowed down a little bit, I think, compared to what I was expecting here in game number 2. They're still making sure that they're proactive in it. I still think that the biggest, at least, issue right now is the follow-up damage, and that's just going to take time. Baronic maybe needing 1 more item, Stewart as well, versus what the Tiamat's been able to dish out on the other side. Specifically, Lasbra. Lasbra's really been the nuisance on the other side. 4-0-3, if you can deal with the Kamazots early on, which way easier said than done, then I think you can control the fight.
Scream has to use Fear No Evil. Haddix caught in the middle and hit by the Golden Apple and the Piercing Moonlight. A very heavy commitment to taking down this solo laner. They expend 3 ultimates, but at the end of the day, they do take him down. No further answer from the Olympus Bolts. The Scarabs finally able to strike back. SOT does some damage up against Venatu, but Venatu will hold his ground on this Tiamat, fire some shots right back at it. Scarabs, though, they do get a nice little pick.
Feels very heavy-handed, like you said. 3 ults just to kill off Haddix. They do get his blink, and honestly, he was undying up to that point. So 2-0-6 is a worthwhile kill, and you get it onto a target, I think, that needs a kill in solo or troll. As long as nothing big happens over the next couple of minutes, you'll be fine. But Baronic's getting put the pressure on.
Baronic taking a lot of damage, and still even more from the root. Gets the slow, and the stun not enough to take him down. Stewart rotates over and makes sure to push them away. Even Lasbra is here just to try and commit to this kill. But Baronic's able to sneak by, the wall not quite enough, and that meditation from Inbound on cooldown, that the extra little factor to make sure to keep him alive.
And hey, sometimes that's what you need early on. It's been helpful so far this game, although maybe not as much as they would like. It's still 8-3 in terms of the kills, and you still are suffering on the right-hand side of the map. The good news is, at this point, Scream and Sot are very difficult to kill off, at least as easily as they were earlier on. And so maybe making things slightly easier for them to stay in this engagement, in these fights, choose their battles. And I gotta give them credit. Like, the last one was only a 1-person Fear No Evil, maybe not that insane, but it got a kill. Scream's been on point with these ults. They get them back up. That makes that Haddix kill just as, if not more, worthwhile than it had been. And now opens up a lot of opportunities for them. Maybe not to start getting aggressive around neutral objectives. If I see Pyromancers being taken and I'm the Scarabs, I leave it. But at least around like the Oni Fury, a Fire Giant, you gotta be able to show face.
The Pyromancer will be started up by the Bolts, and there will not be anybody showing up here by the Scarabs. SOT He'll be all the way to the backside towards his back camp. Everybody else is on the left side of the map or in that middle lane as per way of Baronic. He'll at least be able to clear out the wave. Barracuda, level 17, will spot out this inbound on this Khepri. The shield will get poked away, but that's all that will get poked away off of inbound's health bar will just be that shield. And that sets up for a nice little tier 1 out of Stewart, so he'll be able to get some gold. But it's on the right side of the map. Will be an easy trade out. Another tier 1 tower goes down. This time it's the Scarabs. Right side tier 1, and man, they really just want this kill on SOT. I don't know what he said to them between games or what was kind of going on said before it even all went through, but they really do not want SOT to live out in this lane. Fortunate for him, he's got a stun that'll stop the aggression from hi-rez right in its tracks.
I know what was said.
Okay.
It was his entire Game 1 performance. That's enough. I'd sit on him after that. That was deadly. And he's using his teleport once again. He wants to fight.
He'll go right in. Awesome Jake low, but even lower is Baronic. Throws out the golden apple, doesn't find anybody. It's another whiff by the mid laner. The Scare's blessing, keeping him alive for just a little bit longer. And that'll be enough for them to back away. Barracuda with the ultimate gets some damage, but no one able to get the kill. It's just a tier 1 tower for the Olympus Bolts. Scream's ultimate is down. SOT's ult is still up if they want to go for the fight after, but not enough damage out of the Scarabs for making him want to commit that ultimate to Bolts. They get a few relics, get quite a few ultimates, and they get a tier 1.
Yeah, feels like you might overcommit if you try to re-engage there on the Scarab. So I like the fact that they play it patiently, not going to throw their lives away for nothing. You lose a tier 1 in mid. Unfortunate, but the gold lead's been on the other side already anyway, so don't sweat it too heavily. Instead, be present for some of these other fights. And that's where I think a lot of this has to be the focus, is these other fights, right? That is a tower you can forfeit, no problem. You can't afford as much to just freely drop the Oni Fury or, you know, potentially a Fire Giant at this point. Because this was the minute. It was right now in game number 1 that the Scarabs had made that call and were over there and burning that Fire Giant at this time. And that's really what helped them pick it up. I mean, they had 5 towers that were still on the map they needed to take down. They only got, I think, 1 of them in the process of doing that, but it really did help swing the gold over. They got an Oni Fury. The Scarabs need a huge fight here, or at least a big presence being shown, that the Bolts aren't just going to continue rolling over them.
Well, everybody is on this left side of the map. Oni Fury has respawned, and everybody's got their eyes on it. And the Solo Scarabs make sure to rotate SOT over. Level 17 on both the Assassins and a quick engage, a double stun out of SOT, but it's Jake's health bar. That's looking pretty low. He'll walk right through the bracer and get a bit of extra movement speed to walk away, but a lot of health stripped away from the support, and no ultimates burned out of the Scarabs just yet.
Getting rid of Jake, even though he's still hanging around, he's going to have healing. They still don't have a Cursed Ankh and aren't going to be able to get one. So the Scarabs are going to have to deal with the healing the old-fashioned way. Jake's going to be in this, but I like them forcing the fight.
Oni Fury started up. SOT now the one down to half health. And it's the backline with Scream. 2-man Fear No Evil gets the beads from Barracuda and pushes Veneno away, but he'll hold on to his relics. It's a quick disengage by Scream and the rest of the Scarabs. They'll back up, but they're able to poke down hi-rez just a little bit more too. Both these frontliners down to half health as this Fury still hasn't been taken yet.
And here's where that healing comes in handy. This is why I'm worried about not having a Cursed Ankh. You've got the Shell if you're inbound, which isn't going to be the end of the world. It's helpful in the middle of the team fight. But watch how the Bolts are going to be able to pull this. They're the ones that still theoretically controlling the pace of this fight.
They pull it with 5, but Jake walks up by himself. He'll take a lot of damage. SOT gonna try and close it out, but the healing coming back makes sure to keep Awesome Jake alive. Apple hits, but it's Venenu who picks up SOT first. Inbound in the backline, trying to keep himself and his team alive, but Barracuda picks up Baronic. Scream is low. Stewart takes down hi-rez, but it's a 2-for-1 trade. The Solar Scarabs not looking too hot in this team fight. 2-for-1 in favor of the Bolts, and now they can go right back to the Oni Fury.
Yeah, Stewart is actually in a great spot to turn some damage around. Unfortunately, the rest of his team doesn't seem to be there to give him the support that he needs as of right now. The healing's just too much on the Bolts. You've got a Brawlers, you've got a Divine Ruin, but you need way more on this side right now for the Scarabs to be able to control them. That fight goes much more in your favor if you slow them down at the minimum from being able to at least heal up. But most of the anti-heal you have is only in-combat anti-heal. Granted, most of what you were going to have was in combat if you use something like a Cursed Ankh. But not being able to deal with it specifically for Jake, let him get out. Yeah, you kill off hi-rez, but it just feels like a small blip in the grand scheme of what has otherwise been a pretty dominating Bolts game.
You see an upgraded Meditation. That was up and available during that fight. And the big highlight difference between Meditation Tier 1 and the upgraded version is the 1-second cooldown on every single one of those pulses that go through. So you use an ability, pop that Meditation, get a few seconds shaved off it just for basically just for existing. You get some time taken away from there. And that Lotus Crown from Awesome Jake coming in big, keeping himself and the rest of his team alive. Sure, they lose Haddix, but they get 2. They get the Oni Fury, and they can set up now for this Pyromancer. Barracuda has started it up. Is dealing some decent damage to it, but it's the Bolts kind of posturing up and getting ready for this Fire Giant. Last time it's the Scarabs who were able to start up first. This time it's the Bolts.
I'm going to say watch Scream. Haddix is doing a good job of zoning, but him and Inbound are the two, maybe even Solar Trophy that could get back there.
Lasbra and Haddix are zoning all 4 of them away. Inbound wants to step in, but maybe it'll be the rest of the team to do so. Olympus Bolts get the Fire Giant, and it's a quick retreat. Lasbra's on the tail end of the fight, but he's not committed to going in for a dive or really any kind of fight. They'll get the objective, and it'll be a nice little back away here for the Bolts. But Jake did take a lot of damage taking that one up. With the Pyromancer, the Bolts able to extend this gold lead, now nearly 8,000 gold to their name. But it's a blink ult in by Scream, finds 3, pushes them and separates them all out. But Jake is low and Scream even lower. Haddix credited for the kill. Barracuda up on the horse, max 3. Right in the mouth with it. It's SOT using the piercing moonlight just to get away. Inbound low, and the Scarabs blitzing has worn off of him, and Baronic has no assistance. Haddix takes him down with the healing surge to pick up a second kill in the fight.
Yeah, this one honestly is so far just scrapped up to the fact that the Bolts got a really, really good draft, and they're playing it
He hasn't
just
given
better
up.
overall. Solar Patrol has been sat on, and this is good chase. Yeah, Haddix is going to at least put pressure onto Stewart, help get another kill. They should be able to get rid of Inbound. This might just be game.
I think this might just be game here, Gord. Double kill for Lasbra, double kill for Haddix, and a Phoenix taken out. The Olympus Bolts only have SOT to deal with and this Titan, but SOT doesn't have ultimate, doesn't have a lot of defense, nor a lot of damage. And against a 5-man strong in the Bolts, they're able to close out game number 2 and take us to that coveted Scarab sets game number 3.
And realistically, that's maybe better for them. Think about it this way. Game 2 was so overwhelmingly in favor of the Bolts. This is an inverse Scarab set. They won the first game. Usually they lose game 1, win game 2, lose game 3, except for the Valkyrie set. And so now win game 1, lose game 2, win game 3. Just flip things on their head. That being said, you got to address a lot of the problems that came through. I think the draft was definitely something that needs to be looked at. You could feel the lack of the Emoja there versus what the Kepri was bringing, which didn't bring a whole lot to mind. It was very slow to start, not a lot of follow-up damage for Scream. I think there's definitely some things that need changing going into game number 3.
It's going to be a big game 3 here for both of these teams. The Scarabs, this is one of their final opportunities to kind of get their name out there. Can they do it? Let's take it to a break, and we'll come back for game 3.
sorts of new things happening here in this set. Scarabs win game 1 and then lose game 2. That doesn't happen all that often, but it did happen here. Apparently everything is going to happen today. 2 3-game sets, both of them in studio, and one more game 3 right around the corner here. Dolson with you, Mifflin with me, to talk a little bit about what happens here in game number 2. And this is a different look here, Miff, from the Olympus Bolts in the sense that they get off to a good start. Lasbra on this Camazotz goes undying, 607. But they don't let that good start slip away from them. The Bolts are able to compound on that and then take game 2.
No, this was dominance through and through for the entirety of this one. I mean, it started off, what is that, 2 minutes in? Lasbra picks himself up, a double kill off the
Is it a
screen.
cringe gank if it's on the right side of the map?
I'd argue probably cringier because you almost never gank the soul lane, right? Yeah, I'd say so. I wish you didn't make me say it, but you did.
Well, no, I just didn't know if it had to be a duo lane gank to qualify as cringy. I mean, you had the same net possibility. I guess when you return then a minute later to do it again is when things get a little interesting. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, SOT just got sad on this game, and Lasbra started it off, and the rest of the Olympus Bolts were able to pile on later on. In a different look in a good way for Haddix on this RDO. It was largely kept in check around those Fire Giant fights in game 1. But it felt like Myth Haddix was just kind of able to do what he wanted here by the end of this one.
Yeah, this time around he had a lot more assistance inside the lane. As you said, SOT got sat on, and that seems to be the proper response to a Tsukiyomi inside of the soul lane. Doesn't have any tried and true escapes. And when you allow Haddix the space to establish a lead, that means that RDO's unleashed. Haddix unleashed. He's on tour for the entirety of the game. Afterward, 4-2 and 11 for the soul laner, but maybe overshadowed a little bit by the jungler here, 6-0 and 7.
Barracuda second to top damage in the game, as SOT did 22,000 damage, able to top that one over Barracuda. And so, I mean, I guess you expect that. I mean, you have the Tsukiyomi solo, you're doing a lot of fighting, you're able to do some good damage. So it is down to game 3, Mifflin. And unfortunately, this is not something the Solar Scarabs have had a lot of luck with. I mean,
they do not win these often.
If you had won, or if you had lost game 1, you had won game 2, and then you lose game 3, that's been the MO of the Solar Scarabs so far throughout this phase. But all sorts of crazy things have happened. You win game 1.
That's new.
Maybe it's time to win game number 3. Let's see what P's and B's for game 3 are looking like here in this one, if the Solar Scarabs are able to carve themselves out a decent advantage. Olympus Bolts back in that first pick spot. And it's hard to imagine, Miff, that picks or bans change up all that much, because they literally didn't. Game 1, Bolts in the first pick slot ban Ullr, Sylvanas, Geb. Guess what they banned in game 2?
Was it Ullr, Sylvanas, and Geb?
It was. Okay. And then the Solar Scarabs in game 1 banned Morrigan, Odin, Nike. And then guess what they banned in game 2?
That's tough. Morrigan, Nike, Camazotz.
No, it was really close. It was Morrigan, Odin, Nike.
Darn.
Appreciate you blowing up my bit there, Miff. At any rate, the picks and bans were the same throughout the first 3, at least, from game 1 on over to game 2. And so say it with me here, Miff. Ullr, Morrigan, and then we're going to say Sylvanas.
Well, we got to wait a little bit. The Bolts, they don't ban very quickly, even though they are reprising the same picks. They got to still think about it. They got time to
Does it
work
make sense to keep taking this Sylvanas away from inbound?
Well, there was an ancient philosopher, Dave, as goes by the name Plato, and he can be quoted as saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the Bolts, I think, can keep running with the same bans.
Go ahead, Miff.
That's
keep
it.
going.
No. Okay, well, we can go into some more French philosophers. Jean-Claude Van Damme once said...
He's not French.
His name's John. What do you mean?
What's his last name, Miff?
Van Damme?
That is not French.
What is it then?
I'm 90% sure he's Dutch.
Yeah, Google it. You're going to embarrass yourself. On the broadcast as Sylvanas and Geb are removed from the table by the Bolts and the Solar Scarabs. Take out Terra, Odin, and the Morrigan. That's different. It's Plato.
All right, so I was
mad.
wrong. I was wrong.
He's French?
No, he's Belgian.
Oh, that's what waffles are French.
My God. All right. This is unbelievable. We got a pivotal game 3 on the. We're talking about French waffles, Miff.
Well, Belgian waffles, really.
Okay. Yamoja's going to be the first pick here for the Olympus Bolts, so that's a bit of a pivot. It had been RDO first pick in back-to-back games here, and it is a big change. Inbound was able to get that in game 1. Not really looked at in game number 2. And if the Solar Scarabs are sticking with their trend, they draft Heimdall, and then something to follow it up. But they will not stick with their trend, Mifflin. We will change things up, and Plato will have to wait for another day. We are changing things And Ardio will head on over to
We sure are changing things, Dave. Yeah, Ardio locked in, so the Solar Scarabs, with the first opportunity they've had inside of this set to take Ardio, do exactly that. And Nike selected on the other side, maybe proving that the Bolts and the Scarabs have been banning this one out for a reason. High priority picks and a strong front line already.
Sorry, I had to collect my thoughts for a second.
What are you thinking about?
Whether or not I want to finish this death segment with you or not. Jean Kui, that's going to give us something to talk about here, Mifflin. Umoja first pick. Jean Kui.
Did you mean it?
I did mean that, and I'm going to double down. Still considering standing up and leaving. Jean Kui picked up for the Olympus Bolts here. We have seen some flexibility, haven't we, out of this pick, where has been solo lane once or twice when we've seen it, but it is something I think Venenu has picked and has enjoyed in the past. And that will not be the case. Venenu will be on the Tiamat, and that means Haddock Smith on Jean Kui in a Game 3.
Yeah, surprised to see it picked in general, but picked this early more specifically, right? Like, why are you taking Jean Kui in your top 3? I don't think that's getting banned out, and instead now gives the Solar Scarabs the opportunity to look for some counter picks. Nemesis tends to be the answer to Jean Kui in years of past when that god was a little bit more meta, to say the least. And well, when you start releasing spirits from that giant bag on your back, gives you a little bit additional protections. Nemesis does a really good job of stripping those away. We'll see if the Solar Scarabs elect to go that path or not. I'd argue that they might as well just run back the Hunbots, though. I mean, Scream had a great performance on it in Game 1, maybe slips up a little bit inside of Game 2, but CC like that, it's hard to argue against.
It sure is, and so my eyes glued to how this solo lane starts to look moving forward for the Olympus. Not starts to look, how it does look in game moving forward for the Olympus Bolts.
Yep.
Maybe it synergizes well with Haddock's playstyle. I mean, on the Jean Kui, you have to kind of run it down, right? I mean, it's the
Just
style
facts.
of pick that you need to walk forward. You have to play aggressive, and you hope that the rest of your team is able to follow up onto it. How does the matchup in your eyes, Miff? Well, you discussed a little bit of the CC and how the Solar Scarabs can keep the Jean Kui at bay. Does the Ho Yi change anything for you here about comfort levels with Jean Kui?
Ho Yi's all right into Zhang in that the mark is pretty decent against him. If he's trying to W key you down, the lower he falls, the more damage he'll take against the Ho Yi. But as far as like direct matchup goes, I don't think it shifts things up too much here. It's a decent leap, I guess, to escape the ultimate from Zhang. I'll be honest, man. I know that the rest of the casting team, or maybe specifically Aggro, is a Jean Kui fan. I'm still not sold on this god. Sure, he's got great damage output. Sure, he's got AoE inside of the team fight. Is pretty decent to gods like Khepri, but Khepri not picked inside of this one as of yet. I don't know. It's simple. He W keys, and if he's ahead, he's winning, and if he's behind, he probably isn't.
Miff, do you know who Jean-Claude Van Damme is?
It's the guy from Die Hard.
Like Bruce Willis? That's what you mean?
Nah, I meant Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I'm sorry, and
It's a Christmas
I don't
movie.
want to get too far off kilter here. I needed to cycle back and check and just see where
It's a
that
French
came
philosopher.
from. You know what? I've made my decision. Goodbye. Scylla hovered here by the Solar Scarabs. This would be an interesting pick, not locked in. Morgan Le Fay instead for Baronic. And so if you need someone who's got range and the ability to build what?
Scylla's going to be an interesting pick. Not locked in, though. It's just good, dude. I don't know.
I appreciate
You're good at your job. I liked it.
I appreciate you, Mifflin.
Stop pointing at
Morgan
me.
Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay for Baronic.
Stop.
Does it provide some safety here in the mid lane against Jean Kui and Tiamat? You're not allowed to do that anymore. Yeah, that's the Mifflin rule.
What? No, that's a different thing. Morgan Le Fay, no, not exactly the safest pick up against Jean Kui. You don't have a traditional leap. You don't have any really great dash, so only really relying on the movement speed from the third ability to peel yourself off once Jean Kui does start slamming that W key. But luckily, CC immunity inside of the ultimate means you don't have to worry about this dodge E nearly as much.
Can these guys pick any faster? Come on. Daji for the Olympus Bolt here. So Daji is a pick that has been banned out against Lasbra. And suddenly my mind doesn't want to talk about Daji anymore here,
Why's that?
Mifflin, because Scotty is locked in. A slight ban rate. That's got to get the 2% ban rate is probably, one ban against Barracuda at some point. Picked once by Barracuda and won once by Barracuda. Surprised is the buzzword on this death segment. Are you surprised that the composition the Bolts roll out in Game 3 involves a Jean Kui and a Scotty?
That's a low ball, like low and slow, straight down the middle. You toss me here. Yeah, I'm surprised. We don't see either of those picks.
You're welcome.
Overly often. Scotty, clearly not a pick that we see too often either, but clearly the Olympus Bolts willing to play with some aggression here. I'd say that Scotty probably has a pretty decent matchup into Morgan Le Fay. Again, just the ability to close gap with that Wolf. Going to be very nice up against a guy who doesn't have a traditional escape. Tsukiyomi, though, yet again locked
Got to be
in.
jungle this time.
You got to hope so, right? But I wouldn't put it past him to toss
guess
Nike into the jungle,
right.
audio support, Tsukiyomi solo.
Does Tsukiyomi limit your excitement about, I know it was minimal for Zhongkui anyway, but does it limit even further your excitement about Zhongkui and Scotty? The Piercing Moonlight gets you into that back line pretty free.
No, I think that this is actually, the Solar Scarabs have drafted a composition now that Zhongkui kind of flourishes up against, right? I mean, you've got pretty decent targets. Tsukiyomi and Morgan Le Fay now generally largely immobile inside of the team fight. Zhongkui presses 4 and W keys at either one of them. And if Tsukiyomi decides to initiate against Zhongkui himself, drop the stun at your feet, start releasing some spirits from your bag, Tsukiyomi's not going to be there much longer.
Yeah, maybe not. This is a whole game of firsts here. The Solar Scarabs win game 1, they lose game 2. They need to turn things around and win a game 3. But they're going up against a Zhongkui, Tiamat, Scotty. I mean, this is so unique in all regards. We had a fun matchup earlier on today between the Dragons and the Titans, and now we get a great one between the Bolts and the Solar Scarabs. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here. I'm saying if. This is a big if. If the Solar Scarabs lose this one, you got to feel for I mean, you know, you go 3 games against all the top teams in the league. I think before the game even kicks off, you have to give some credit to the fact that the Solar Scarabs have turned around this team enough where you are making these teams that have traditionally finished in the top half, the top 4, take you to 3 games. But they have given themselves a great chance to not even have this conversation. They have a fantastic opportunity to beat the Olympus Bolts here. In your mind, where does this Olympus Bolts composition hinge? Who's got to do well? If this person does bad, you're losing the game.
Well, it depends on how early this game goes, right? If it's an early game, try an early finish, you're really keeping your eyes on this Daji. But if this game does go late, you got to look at the unorthodox picks, right? You've got a Scotty, which could have very well just been a standard hunter. You've got a Zhongkui that could have just been a warrior. So you're really hinging your late game team fight around those 2 picks. If the Bolts do find themselves in a 25, 30-minute situation and these picks aren't really flourishing, I think it's going to be very clear where the weaknesses are. It's
pretty interesting. Baronic on the Morgan Le Fay. Not a pick we've seen in the last 6 games. Discordia has been very popular. Discordia, though, smartly banned out here by the Olympus Bolts. Merlin has been in the conversation. With the mid laners that were still available, Morgan Le Fay was the answer for the Solar Scarabs, and that'll give them the best chance at winning game number 3, Bolts versus Scarabs. Let's go.
We are now 6 games deep into our Saturday here. It was a 3-game set before, and it's a 3-game set now, but this time it's the inverse for the Solar Scarabs. They won game 1, they lost game 2. Maybe they can have an inverse of their game 3 performances and get a victory here over the Olympus Bolts. It's J-Mac and Gormizer standing by, and we got Doug on our spectators. We jump right into the action for game number 3. Barracuda, Scotty. That's all I got to say. Barracuda, Scotty. Only person who's playing this god. Not what I would have expected out of a game 3. You know, I'm not going to say everything's on the line here for the Bolts. Obviously, they're still trying to shoot for that number 2 seed here. You think that Scotty was maybe the answer for them here in Game 3, Gore?
Honestly, I think she's doing, like, ability-based hunters. We talked a lot more about, like, Neath, I think, after the changes, things like that. And we've seen Uller jump to the top. I think Scotty deserves to be in that conversation, so it's not surprising to see Barra go back to it, but I guess it does make sense that he's the only one doing it. He was the only one willing to play Scotty last year, for the most part, too. And so it's not outlandish. And admittedly, this is maybe the best matchup. Look, Hu Yi's played 11 games. He's won one. And it was
Single
the Leviathans that won that. So I think that this is at least numbers odds in favor of the Scotty blanket. And then I think, of course, with the way that Barra performed on her the last time they played this, it's something that is beneficial to the team. Plus, you've got, what was that, like Tiamat Yamoja going into your late game, just as 2 examples for why the longer this game goes or the earlier this lead gets picked up for the Bolts, if they're able to, is going to be just massive for them.
And we saw what Lasbro can do on this Dodgy, specifically up against, what was it, Captain Twig, who didn't get to have a fun time whenever he was playing up against the Dodgy. Plenty of solo kills. A brief pause in the action here. So get ready to try and get you back here into game number 3. Just a little brief pause there by the players as we get ready to start up this third game. It's a big one here. The Solar Scarabs, their final match of the season, is up against the Leviathans. That's not a fun one to have to go up against. Undefeated currently, though we see if that does change tomorrow, because they'll be in studio here facing off against the Titans tomorrow. That'll be another big set. You guys want to tune in? That's three. That's actually 3 sets. That's the most we've had in a single weekend for in studio matchups. So I'm excited for that, but I'm more excited to see how this game 3 goes on. Should be just another moment here before we're able to hop right back in. Lasbro going on this Dodgy. One of those questions that kind of always buzzes around with a Dodgy is the ability to burn beads for either her burning beads for the rest of the team or the rest of the team burning beads for her. Do you think the Bolts have drafted a solid composition for the Dodgy to flourish here?
They will be able to make it work, but maybe not as much around like beads burning potential. Like I can't think of like maybe Emoja is going to be able to do so. Maybe the Tiamat as well with some really well placed like roots or something like that. But for the most part, there's not a lot of hey, you go burn their beads, I'll go powwow. There is a lot of hey, they don't have CC immunity built in. I'm gonna get their beads, then let's fight them. And worst case scenario, they don't have their beads, they get pulled in. It makes it a lot easier for you. And we've seen it in the past. Lasbro has been on the, what was it, the receiving end? No, he was the deliverer of this, hunting people down on this Dodgy. And so I won't be too surprised if he gets to that point late game. But realistically, you're looking for a lot of setup. I mean, the pull in, I'm going to once again mention the tanky nature. Zhang Kui, not a warrior, not a guardian, but as tanks, or as mages go, pretty hefty.
Heavenly Pop, Stewart, and inbound both stunned out. Barracuda needs one more. Basic, and him and Calder are able to do it. First blood goes to the Olympus. Both not even a minute in the game. All the action in the last 2 matchups have been so focused on the right side. Well, you got a Zhang Kui and a Nike there. Who cares about that? Quick early blood here for the Bolts and duo.
And honestly, showing the strength of Calder early on, you get a great kill onto Stewart. You give it over to Barra. He's going to get that first blood advantage. And you've got to admit that it's feeling pretty good as a start for the duo lane for the Bolts. Not the end-all be-all, but still something that is going to be a solid lead to build off of. Already going to be able to hit level 2, have a little bit more of that pressure that's built in the lane. And I'm watching the 1v1. Calder tanks some shots. That's going to help up against the Hou Yi. It's Mark of the Golden Crow, as great as it is, can't hit through Calder no matter what, so it's going to open things up. Also, Lasbro's here.
Double tap there against Jake, but with Lasbro teleporting inbound, has nowhere left to run on the bear. He'll run as fast as he can, but Lasbro can catch him. And the Patron Saint of Pain, that's the title I was going to go with for him earlier, able to bring that to Captain Twig. Now Brett does it here in the duo lane.
No beads for 90 seconds here for Stewart, so that is a lot of golden opportunities. Oh, Haddix.
Haddix in danger and not going to be able to get the heal right back. SOT and Scream team up to now fight back against Haddix. Deliver a little bit of that righteous justice right back at him for all those times he got camped last game.
And we have ourselves some back and forth. That being said, beads are burned equally on Sot and Scream. It's hard to combine their names, despite the fact that they both start with an S. They are going to have to deal with that as it comes through. But good news, until level 5 happens here for Lasbro, they don't need to be too worried about it. Haddix, not often is Zhang Kui going to stun both of you, and I don't think Vin is looking to actively run around in the jungle.
He went Mannequin Scepter on Zhang Kui. That's not the starter I would have expected a Zhang Kui to go to begin with here, but hey, Mannequin Scepter.
You know, I didn't think about this. Does it apply with his Ghosty as well?
I imagine it does, because it procs things like Demonic Grip, and it does with your Telkine's Ring. So yeah, I imagine that it would proc it here with that. So you do get a double dip, though in lane it's not quite as valuable. You do see a couple little pops going up against it. So he's able to make it at least somewhat work here.
I am infinitely more interested in your lane now.
And they do. He's interested in keeping everybody out of his lane. Barracuda teleports in. Scream gets some damage to the Piercing Moonlight, but Lasbro is still persisting up against Bronic. Not quite enough damage to Dragonflight.
Look at Jake.
Gets Bronic and Scream out, but Jake is here. He split his target.
Hello!
Barracuda with the clothesline. Takes down Scream, and now it's Sot over the wall, trying to find Lasbro inbound. Has jumped in here. We turn this Conquest map into an arena game, and Sot is the one who comes out with the kill. Inbound goes with a triple stun. SOT and Baronic try and close the gap back in, but what a fight we've had in mid. Almost everybody has shown some face on this map. Even now, Haddix might be rotating over, but he'll back away. I thought Stewart was even going to make a try over here. Well, I thought we were going to see all 10 players here in the middle of the map just this early in.
Luckily, they slow down just a little
Just a
bit.
little.
Although Haddix was a lot closer than I think he was even expecting to see himself get this early on. That is a good turnaround. Lasber just gets a little too aggressive. There is a moment in there. I don't know how close Lasber was to level 5, but the fact that he's hit it now really means to me that he was right there. If his team gets a kill and he gets the assist, if they're able to clear half a minion wave while he's there, he ticks to 5, and despite being incredibly low, goes into the powwow. Beads were still down for Sot and Scream. Opens up a lot of opportunities for the Bolts. And unfortunately, we don't get to live in that world. We live in the world where he died because he didn't get that experience and wasn't able to fight back. And it was a good turnaround. Plus, a 3-man stun from Inbound. I mean, it didn't result in a crazy turnaround, but it goes to show that the Scarabs have a lot more to offer here.
SOT, he'll take some poke, an ultimate from Haddix, and Lasber will teleport right in, and a nice little basic follow-up after means another kill for the Olympus Bolts. And maybe one more if Scream sticks around a little too long by this blue buff. Why does he rotate his way back out? He'll secure that blue buff, and now it's Venenu versus Inbound. Venenu is winning that fight. It's an ultimate out of Awesome Jake. Baronic is not winning that fight against the support. He's being forced into his own ultimate. Venenu gets the consume, but not enough damage. It's Awesome Jake who closes out the kill. A couple of basics after by the support. Drop him down, and Inbound not quite level 5 yet on this RDO, but watch out for Scream. A Riptide from Jake means he can get away, but it's a teleport in from the Piercing Moonlight. Lasbra pops himself right back in. Jake is low, and Jake is gone. Inbound cleans up the kill and at least makes it a 1-for-1.
Yeah, 1-for-1, but you lose mid for support. You're feeling just a little bit better if you are the Bolts. But still, a good kill from the Scarabs to make sure things don't get out of hand completely in the mid lane. You've got to be careful. Inbound was just a hair away, one misstep away from potentially making that a 2-for-1. Luckily, he's fine. This Tiamat is a problem, but Vin hasn't even hit any of the big power spikes that I'm expecting from a Tiamat just yet. You also get a nice little invade here from Scream. The Tsukiyomi, while it was a little more quiet in game number 2 from Solo or Troll, has definitely been hitting the mark here in game 3. At least in terms of presence, and that was a good ult to make sure he got engaged. I expected something out of Lasbra, but so far they've been slowing it down. Beads are available. Lasbra's caught out.
Lasbra just gets clothesline walking towards the jungle. He'll drop the powwow and find Scream, but it's quick beads. Only Baronic is going to get yanked back, and Lasbra able to teleport to his ally and get him out of danger. So quick disengage by the Bolts. Does get one set of beads, however, so Screams are down because his ultimate is still on cooldown, but Baronic not seeing any reason to need to panic. Also, technically not having any way to get out. His ult and beads were down. He'll get pulled in, but not much more beyond there. Lasbra, most importantly, gets to walk away.
We have to watch Lasbra with bated breath now. Whether or not he shows face in the mid lane with Scream and Baronic having their beads down, that seems like pretty easy targets. But it's also been a little more slow rolling for him. I mean, Bera's got the hefty chunk, I think, of damage that I've seen in these earlier fights. So I'm watching to see if Lasbra is going to be able to take more of an active role. He's going to have more player damage just by merits of where he's been. But
Inbound, looping around. Stewart drops the Suns on top of Barracuda, but it's Stewart who's losing the fight between them. Scream teleports in with the ultimate, but it's Barra who strikes him first. Scream gets the trade out, and now it's a 2v1 up against Jake. He'll get stunned out, slowed by Inbound. The stun is good, and the Barra Claw after, plus one more basic. Scream picks up the double kill, and Venenu just a little too late to the fight.
If they can collapse on Baronic and get a mid for the duo lane, that's going to be big, but Lasbra doesn't have the engage, and he doesn't have the follow-up. Venenu's on the other side of the map still, zoned out by Inbound. So a good call. I mean, that's a good trade. Admittedly, there's something. So Slaney in the pregame interview had mentioned the fact that some of the problems from the Scarabs has come from. Come on, guys, you gotta give me a second to talk. Yeah, let him out of there. Come on. Was talking about how some of it was late game experience and just experience in general with this team. You get to see that experience from Barra there. He should have died much faster, but he still got a kill out of it. That was impressive from him.
Unfortunate ultimate by Lasbra. Misses all 3 shots against Inbound. Inbound probably wasn't too worried about that, so he'll be able to walk away A-okay, no problemo. But a big ultimate burn there out of Lasbra means that those beads cooldowns, specifically against Scream, are going to be able to come back before he gets that ultimate available. Baronic has both his ult and beads back up, so he'll be just A-okay the next time that he goes up against Lasbra. Thanks to Barracuda having that Calder, can do just that and tank up that Scorpion all by himself. It only takes 2 ticks on the dog for it to finally go down. So another objective goes to the Bolts. They're able to hold about a 1,200 gold lead up here against the Scarabs in game number 3, but we've been seeing pretty much this exact same thing in all 3 of our games so far today in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a lead, not much to write home about, but the engage right now onto Lasmer, they're making him regret it.
No Pal-Lao up for him,
good
but Inbound
stun.
gets a stun right off of the teleport in. It's Baronic who puts him down with the ultimate, and Inbound is low, but he doesn't fall down until Haddix's ultimate takes him out, but Haddix gets stunned out, and SOT puts him in the dirt with the barrier. Another 2 kills up for for the Solar Scarabs as a whole. They tie up the kills, and they nearly tie up that gold. Less than 1,000 now between them.
Look, Inbound, game 1, Yamoja, really impactful. Game 2, Kepri, barely saw him. Game 3, this Artio is making things work for them. It is doing a lot. In terms of the stuns, the damage that we're seeing out of it as well, it has made the difference. And even though Jake, I think, is doing a great job on this, Yamoja has been very controlling and commandeering of a lot of these fights. It's just such a good synergy between Scream and Inbound that are creating a lot of open opportunities for them to just flourish in a lot of these little 3v3 engagements. Oddly enough, most of them happening on the right-hand side of the map, not where I would have put my money on it. But I think that Inbound is making a good difference for his team here.
Oh, Inbound in the middle of the rivers. They'll crash through. Inbound's down to half, but he'll
All
be
right,
able to dash away. A good stun, but an even better route by Barracuda. Holds him in place, and Calder deals the last second. Well, welcome back to lane, Stuart. You just got out of one fight, and you're right back into the fires again. It's Barracuda who picks up the double kill, and the Bolts can take a Tier 1 tower.
How are they going to do that to me right after I talk about? How are they going to do
They're just bullying
I'm talking
him,
about
man.
how good that, how well that it's been played, how these 3v3 skirmishes, and they just go and wipe the duo lane.
Barra's 5-1.
Yeah, Barra's kind of knocking this one out of the park. If you were doubting anything on this comp, it better be the Zhang Kui, not the Scotty, because the Scotty's doing just fine. That being said, I will say Zhang has performed better this phase so far than what we've gotten to see out of the past.
Yeah, it
Most
wasn't
of
great
those,
phase 2.
He was not good for a lot of the year, and he's been holding his own here in this game, although Haddix hasn't gotten the opportunity to really showcase what he's worth just yet. I think a lot of that's going to be in the late game. And again, that's what I'm looking at, mainly for the Bolts. I think there's a little bit to be had. Solar Troll has a really good transition into the late. Same thing, Scream, Baronic, Stuart, and Inbound should have some interesting moments in the late game. But you've got Tiamat, you've got Yamoja, you've got Zhang Kui. All of those are going to be good pillars for the Bolts as time goes on. And they've got enough of a lead to build off of here. They're going to start really being able to impact that around the Gold Fury on the left-hand side.
1,000 gold up for the Bolts, and maybe going to try and take something away here in the jungle, or maybe try and bait up a Gold Fury fight. Barracuda will start it up with his support right behind him. Barracuda taking a good chunk of damage, so is the Gold Fury, but Lasbra in the middle of all. He's going to have to use that Pal-Lao, pull anybody that he can, but it's only going to be Inbound, and a quick collapse in by the Bolts to try and take him down, but Inbound able to walk away. The Ghost of the card, not enough damage to take him down. It's
That's a good
Haddix
turnaround.
who trades out. It'll be SOT getting the credit for the kill. Vanade who's stunned out by Scream, and SOT just needs the last bit of
good
damage.
kill.
No, it's Scream who throws out the Shadow Shuriken to pop him. Lasbra is low, a big knockup by
Whoa!
SOT. It's a double kill, and the ricochet after by Stewart is enough to take him down. Barracuda low, Barracuda down. It's a kill for Stewart, and only Jake left alive, and the Solar Scarabs get a 4-for-none trade.
I mean, you called it exactly the way you have to see it. So much of an investment into Inbound, and he gets out alive. But not only that, you get a really good turnaround. Haddix, he just now finishes that Breastplate of Valor. Was not tanky, is not tanky enough to win this fight for them. And unfortunately, Lasberg uses a lot. Vin uses a lot at the very beginning and didn't have enough.
SOT just says, leave. To Awesome Jake there, says, do not come here. Inbound even dashes in to push him away. But it's going to be the ricochet. Y'all should not pass. That's a good.
Yeah,
that's a good
'cause he's
one.
got the-
That's a good one. That is a
Nike's
good one.
got a staff.
She does have a staff. I don't
Not
think,
an old man, but close
Actually, I think she does kind of slam it down with the Sentinel of Zeus like that, but she didn't use it in this case. That one was just the pure tankiness from SOT
the
to
effort
keep
was
that one
there.
alive. It's there. I appreciate I appreciate the effort on it. 4-1-4 for SOT. 4-1-7 for Scream. The rest of the team only been able to find one kill, a couple extra deaths there, but Stewart coming in at the very end, getting his first kill, getting his ricochet. Some big damage out there. Some teams sometimes forget how much ricochet do. Sometimes we forget how much ricochet can do, especially if you get a double or a triple bounce, especially under the tower lines. We see some crazy ricochets ever since Huyi's come back, but so far, Huyi hasn't found a whole lot of success to kind of close these games out. 1 for 12
Yeah.
at
somewhere
this
around
moment,
there.
so maybe Stewart can double that win rate. Or at least double the win count.
The win count.
The win
Hopefully.
count.
Well, let's see what he's able to provide. One good ricochet. Look, we've seen Zap hit a really good ricochet with him.
That was gross.
Admittedly, I think that is the one win was that game. So maybe it balances out. Stewart gets one really good ricochet. Maybe this is where he's able to find it.
That's
It was
the
just
key to
such
victory.
a big amount of damage being done. That Crusher Aussie combo really showing out the power. I mean, that is maybe it's a good fight regardless for the Scarabs. But the fact that you get that amount of damage in that quick, short burst really did solidify their control over it, allow them to get that Fury, and really sink their teeth into what is now a really good team fight. And until Haddix is a little more online, he got that Breastplate of Valor a little late, so he wasn't as tanky during the last fight, but we haven't gotten to see a lot of this Zhang Hui that has got me hoping for this game. And so I'm really watching him again with even more interest. He's got the mannequins, he's got the Pythags, he's started up another tiny trinket. What his build is like in the next 5 minutes is going to dictate a lot of whether or not the Bolts can win this game or not.
Gotta imagine if he finishes out, he goes for the Hidden Blade inbound. He'll get caught inside the rivers again. A nice stun. Lasper gets some good damage, and that should be
That's good
a
control.
kill on the support. Inbound will fall down. Venenu gets it with the damage from the Cyclone. But SOT and the rest of the team has rotated over, but so has Haddix, to make sure that there's no further follow-up from the Scarabs to try and punish them for killing their support. Instead, it'll just be the one quick pick there by the Bolts. They do use Awesome Jake's ultimate to get it, and they do actually get the meditation burned away from inbound, so you won't have that one for the next fight.
That's actually a big deal. 120 seconds that you're not going to have that available. Pyromancer's being started up. This is a good neutral objective with the disparity between these teams. If the Bolts are able to pick it up, that's a good advantage for him. But Sot's showing face.
Pyromancer
Oh my
low,
God!
Solar Scarabs, and SOT
just walked up.
specifically just walked on up and said, thank you very much. This objective looks really nice inside my pocket. He'll pop the barrier formation to steal that one away. And the Olympus Bolts, what has been their safe haven of objectives. That's the one they've always been going to when there's nothing else to do. Let's just go grab it. SOT says, not this time. And he'll sneak that one right away from. I can't even say sneak. He just walked up to them and said, thank you. I will take this.
Nothing sneaky about it. He came up with a banner, like giant in the sky, saying, hey guys, I'm trying to steal an objective from you. And they let him. And they didn't do much to pull him away. And the question is whether or not that's going to make as big a difference as it possibly could. Again, a little bit more experience in gold that goes in favor of the Scarabs. That already feels good. But it's this 18.5 to 19-minute mark that I'm going to keep my eyes on. Scarabs, with a lead here, that's typically where we've seen that. That is where we saw the very first Fire Giant in Game 1. With a good lead, a team has started those up. But when I say good lead, I'm typically thinking 4K gold that they've been able to pull their way. So with Fire Giant available, Primal Fury is probably going to be a big point of contention. Nobody has enough strength right now to scoop up a Fire Giant and feel very confident about it. Plus, Bear's on this side of the map, and the way he's been playing, he's 5-2-1, but he's got a lot of damage behind him that is deadly.
Lasper, he'll get rooted out. Only level 13 on this Dodgy, and he's starting to feel the pain of what Scream is able to do on this level 16 Tsukiyomi. Hasn't got that Transcendence fully stacked up yet, but maybe can get just a little bit closer if they can get a pick off against Barracuda or find Lasper. Lasper does get back to base, but now Barracuda is going to have to suffer. He'll throw out the Cauldron. The ultimate. Scream is low, pops his own ultimate and his beads, just trying to stay alive. Actually, not even the ultimates, the beads and the Aegis, and those aren't enough to get him out of there. River's Rebuke from Awesome Jake, and a Cauldron toss there by Barracuda, lock him down, and that's enough to kill him.
With Primal Fury coming up, that's a very important kill. Jungler out of the mix. Admittedly, a lot of bolts have been used on the Bolts. They've got 3 down, but with Lasper still having his, Haddix still having his, those are 2 big team fight ults. They still give him control. Plus, it's a 4v5. It's not like you really need all of your ults in order to control this. You do still need to worry about Sot. We saw what happened with the last objective, and it seems like he's going for the same style of play. Hey guys, I'm here. What's up?
Hey guys, I'm going to walk forward, and I've got a bubble. Are you going to stop me? Who's going to be the one to stop him?
Oh my
This time, the Olympus Bolts do secure the objective, but they are really tugging at our heartstrings there. SOT has the bubble, and then he's going to make sure to get away from that one because he does have an ultimate of his own to pull himself away from that Pow Lao. So he'll save the bubble, expend the ultimate, and the Bolts do get the Fury this time. The objective does go their way, and the gold can swing back towards their side. 900, almost 1,000 gold now. The Bolts have brought back to themselves even after being down almost 2K.
Granted, Palau's down. You don't have to worry too much about it. With the beads that are still available, now a Phantom available, a lot of these big team fight ults, River's Rebuke, as well as this Palau, maybe feeling a little less effective. Luckily, the damage is still there, so it doesn't really matter that the ults haven't been getting too much. They've been able to find a lot of the fights that have mattered for the Bolts. Fire Giant's the only big neutral objective. Stewart's done a good job pushing up left. If Bear is caught out over here defending and maybe trying to push back, and a good rotation from Stewart, you could have a 5v4 in favor of the Scarabs in the FG pit sometime relatively soon. Or just a 5v3 if you can catch somebody out in the jungle. 5v1, anything like that would be a really good pick opportunity for the Scarabs. So they also have to worry about the map state. They've got 4 towers still standing. All 3 of their tier 2s are still up, so they're not worried about it. They have to do a lot more against the other side. Tiamat minions are there in mid. Bara just pushed up pretty heftily on the left-hand side. There's still tier 1 in mid and duo for the Olympus Bolts, which is, 1, a good 1k gold the Scarabs can put in their pockets, but 2, safe havens that they're going to have that are making it a little more... I mean, at 18 minutes, 19 minutes, not difficult for the Scarabs to dive under, but it definitely gives them some control that the Scarabs would like to strip away.
That's a full group up from the Scarabs, and a leap in the backline by SOT. He'll shove Haddix around and try and get some big damage. He's down to a quarter health. He uses the ultimate to try and walk away, but SOT will walk him right down, but it's a trade out inbound. Loses his life, and Scream is caught in the middle of the tower. He goes down. Venenu, credit for that. Lasbro up on the Powwow, trying to find anybody that he can. Stewart will immediately pop his beads and get himself out, but it's SOT now stuck in the middle of 4, surrounded, and Barracuda out of the jungle picks him off, and it's 3 down for the Scarabs for just a lone Haddix.
I mean, what an explosive fight. Yeah, you lose Haddix, but that's more than worthwhile. When it was just Haddix for inbound, not necessarily a great trade. Haddix for inbound and Scream, good trade. Haddix for inbound, Scream, and SOT, fantastic job in terms of what you're going to be able to get. Honestly, with the positioning of the Scarabs, if the Bolts want, they can hold this for 10 seconds and let Haddix respawn to be able to pick it up. Yeah, Jake's going to have to dip from the fight a little bit early, but ultimately everybody should be able to get all of this Fire
Bolts.
Giant. They're going to be just happy with this engagement. And I really like this turnaround. That is a great fight for them. The tier 1 tower, I was just saying, shouldn't make a big difference. Does a lot of damage for them in that fight. And now they're in a good amount of control. Plus, you get a Pyromancer on top of it. That is swinging heftily an amount of gold into your pockets. Wouldn't be surprised to see the back come through, finish up some of these tier 3s like a Titan's Bane coming out for Barracuda. I believe just now picked up the Op Shard for Finn. It's going to be a lot easier to peel through these frontliners that have been causing them some trouble.
4K gold and XP for the Olympus Bolts here up over the Solar Scarabs in Game 3. 20 minutes in. Fire Giant, the first one of the game, goes the way of the Olympus Bolts. Awesome Jake working towards that pen item. Most often been seeing Spear of Desolation kind of be the option that these Yamojis specifically, and I think even mostly just Jake, has really been loving going towards. We'll see if he does pick that one up. With the Obsidian Shard up for Venenu, it's a nice little bit of percent pen for him. And on the opposite side, Veronica still waiting to finish that one off. Nobody's hit level 20. I was going to say nobody's hit level 20, but I looked and Venenu is now level 20. So the first level 20 on the map
He did it just to
is that mid lane. He really did. Everybody always does that. You're like, it's a X level difference, or hey, nobody has quite hit X yet. And immediately, as soon as you say it or you think you're about to say it, they do it. The Olympus Bolts, they'll take more than just the level 20 for Venenu. They'll take a tier 2 tower away from the Solar Scarabs. A bit of a scatter grouping here by them.
And you know what? Here's where, this is actually a really weird part, but here's where Calder comes in handy. Calder's really good for helping siege objectives without an EFG.
So are Lizards.
I mean, able to help get that damage. Yeah, then you add in Tiamat minions. That's kind of a gross amount of push that the Bolts have. And Calder recovers his health fast enough that Bear is going to be able to utilize that, not just for that tier 2, but good for Phoenixes. I anticipate it being a big difference.
Ow.
Plus, when his ult comes up, having that damage immunity for him, it's going to be very helpful.
That's a bubble burned away from inbound. That Ruination out of Venenu did connect. And that stun will strip out that one defensive option from the front liner. He'll have it back up in about 60 seconds, and it's a quick Relic Dagger back for inbound. So 50 seconds now on the Magi's Blessing, the Magi's
Scream.
Cloak. But Scream might be in a bit of danger. Lasper goes in with the immediate teleport. It's a sprint pop there by Awesome Jake. Scream uses his ultimate, just in a bit of a panic to see if they would continue going in. But the Bolts are able to back away, and the Only Fury respawns, so Barracuda gets to walk right back to it and drop that one for his team.
Your Heavenly Agility drop for Scream's ult feels like it's worthwhile. That sprint not going to do as much overall for the Olympus Bolts as it is what Scream's ult could provide for them. Plus, they get an Oni Fury to boot. I mean, it is definitely a much slower pace. You would anticipate a team, especially with this kind of lead, being able to knock on a Phoenix, but it doesn't seem like they're as confident in their capabilities of doing so right now for the Bolts. So they slow off, they back down. They still have a minute, just a little over, for this Fire Giant to work with. At the bare minimum, you should sweep up that last tier 2. But realistically, this could be a good final surge onto that left-hand Phoenix. And the ward coverage indicates it. Look how many
Good
Bolts
Lord.
wards are covering the left-hand top half of the jungle. They know where
That's their
Veronica
jungle
is.
now.
They know where Stewart is. And anybody else that steps over there, hey, inbound, I'm looking at you. You're about to walk on one. Yeah, they've got full vision
Ping.
on them and should be able to take an advantage in that fight.
And there's ping, and there's another ping by Scream as he walks over there. I mean, this is
a lot of coverage.
It's no longer the Scarabs jungle. That is the Bolts jungle through and through. A few of those wards are starting to fade away here as we get ready to set up. Well, Oni Fury is already gone. That was taken very quickly and speedily by the Bolts, so they are able to get a little bit more gold. Almost 7,000 they've got up over the Scarabs, and it does still make quite a bit of difference here. Nobody has hit that 6th item. In fact, there are players who still haven't even been able to finish their starter items. I'm looking pretty much at everybody on the Scarabs and Haddix. Haddix hasn't finished up that Mannequins, though I'm not sure if he even really wants to. Mannequin Hidden Blade, I imagine, would be the one that he does go towards if he does finish it, or he could maybe just sell it. We'll see if the game even goes on that long for it to happen. It's a surge up to the right side. The Tier 2 drops down. The Phoenix is in the sights of the Bolts, but they're not willing to make a full commit just yet. Everybody kind of spread out here around this neutral objective.
The Fire Giant just wore off. So the likelihood of getting a Phoenix, in my mind, drops drastically, although I guess you do still have Tiamat minions that could come help out somewhere and somehow. And they've got their own minions that they're setting up. I actually like this. They were waiting for the group up, trying to pull the Scarabs out here. But it doesn't seem like it's going to work too well. They are going to defend this through and through. You have to keep your eyes on Sot and on Scream. With Fire Giant coming up in just a second, I can't imagine the Bolts trying to mount a fight under Phoenix. They're going to pull back pretty soon.
Now, funny enough, they group up all the minions and makes it just that much easier for Stewart to go ahead and take those ones out with the Ricochet, and Baronic with that Sigil can easily crop them out, especially if they're all grouped up nice and tightly there. But Awesome Jake will continue to delay these minions for as much as they can.
This
They're
is
buying
wildly aggressive.
as much time as they can. I'm not sure if their call is to really go for this Phoenix or if it's just to try and bait the Scarabs out. And they're spending a lot of time and resources on this side to do so. They drop the Tiamat Lizards. They drop a little bit of damage with the Riptide or push those minions around with the Riptide. But now the Bolts are backing up, maybe trying to pull those Scarabs forward.
They're going to be able to pull them out, but the Fire Giant's also up. Like, best case scenario, you get a fight against the Scarabs. Worst case scenario, you get a free Fire Giant.
Stun off the mark, inbound right in, has the bubble to try and zone away from Haddix.
It's
The
a
bubble
3v5.
will get popped. Haddix gets knocked up in the sky and pushed up against the Rivers as Jake drops them down. But nobody from the Scarabs are really
There it
caught
is.
inside. Scream, however, takes half of his health as the rest of the team of the Bolts take the Fire Giant. Inbound is all by himself. The stun is good, and he has no way to get out of it. Another stun by Haddix, inbound low, but he's able to crawl right out.
Oh, Lasbra blinks forward. Lasbra still has Pal out. He's going
Powwow
out.
up. That's going to be enough. Just the damage from alone will be enough to take down inbound. Scream is going to be just fine. Nobody else taken out just yet, but it's already one down for the Scarabs.
And this is good. You've got 5 people with Fire Giant, Tiamat minions, Calder, regular minions, and that FG buff, which I'm pretty sure I already highlighted. It's going to be a good siege for the
SOT in the back. It's 4 with the ult, but it's the Phoenix that's the target of the
Good
Olympus
damage.
Bolts. They get it out, but Baronic
Good kill.
is able to trade out and at least get one for it. Haddix goes down, and it's a quick disengage by the Olympus Bolts. They get what they've been looking for the last couple of minutes in that right side Phoenix, but it does cost them Haddix to do so.
We've got 20 seconds without inbound. They might be able to catch off Baronic. He walked back to the right-hand lane, and Vin really wants that, and he gets the knockup.
The knockup is good. The ultimate does some damage against the Aegis, but it's a Dragonflight out of Baronic, and an even better Riptide by Awesome Jake. Finds him out. Baronic gets caught out. Venenu credited to the kill. Stewart leaps away, and Lazarus slowed down by the Caltrops. But now inbound has respawned. It's a quick dash back in. Venenu is in the front line for everybody. He'll have to leap right back out. The knockup is good to get some damage against Scream, but inbound, he's looking for blood, he's looking for kills, and so is SOT. A leap in, but a Rivers Rebuke back online for Awesome Jake. Barracuda takes down inbound SOT, caught in the middle, and it's Lasbra dealing with Scream, picks him up with the powwow against Stewart, and it's only Scream left to defend, and he will not do so. Venenu picks him up, and the Bolts can close out Game 3 in the set.
Lasbra and Jake just doing their best bait impression. They're wiggling around saying, come on, you know you can kill me, you know you can fight me. Barra and Vin are laughing at full health, both with their beads. At the time, you still had Vin's Aegis available. They knew exactly what they were trying to do, and they get the Scarabs to bite, they chomp, they pull them out, and they get the kill that they need as well. Not only that, but just good fights. To pick off Baronic, they dove really deep for that, and the team still had to manage to just barely save them from what could have been a very cataclysmic decision from the Bolts. Jake barely gets out of there. Vin had enough health that he was probably fine. But if that kill doesn't happen, if that's a 5v5, this game's still going.
Unfortunately, Baronic does get caught at the tail end, and the Bolts are able to close out another 3-game set, this one going in their favor. We'll go ahead and take it to a break, and the desk will come back to send us off for the rest of the day.
fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
I got to admit, I hate the flexibility that production has with that video now, where there are three options. Either Mike doesn't say it,
That's
Mike
the worst.
does say it like he used to, or it's like the delayed one. And so now there's just there's way
It just
too many
needs to be
options
said.
now. You say it, and Mike said the thing, and he said the thing about Alienware, a fantastic sponsor here in Season 8 of the SPL. And if you want to get your hands on some of that awesome Alienware gear, you're going to go on over to smitegame.com/Alienware. And then use code SMITEAW. That's the important part. SMITEAW at smitegame.com/Alienware for some discounts on all of the awesome Alienware gear. You can play on the same stuff that our pros do. I personally guarantee you'll be as good at SMITE as our pros are if you're playing on this Alienware gear. My name is Dolson. Mifflin is with me one final time here today. Talk about the Olympus Bolts versus the Solar Scarabs. Miff, I think you got to feel for the Scarabs at this point, man. If you were looking at Phase 1 and Phase 2 finishes as far as standings go, they have gone 3 games against every team that has finished in the top 5 of Phase 1 and Phase 2, except for the Leviathans, who they still have to play. So they've been showing up against these teams. They just can't close out Game 3s.
It's such a tough spot to find you in, right? Because obviously this team has merit if they're able to push every single one of these squads 2-3. But I think it lies in a deeper issue for the Solar Scarabs. They always play against the level of their opposition. It doesn't matter if it's a top team or it's a bottom team, the Valhalla Valkyries. They went 3 no matter what.
You're going to drop it on that? You're going to drive by the Valkyries?
And now please talk about the game, Dave.
I will happily talk about the game. Awesome Jake looked awesome in this one. Took the Umoja away from inbound, and so that was an important pivot point here in picks and pans. And then Barracuda as well, Miff. They're throwing some unconventional picks out as far as Hunter goes here for Barra. We know he loves Scotty. Maybe some viability here in 8.9 with the way that the ability of the Mace Tree has kind of broken down. There were a couple of times, though, where we did see the immobility of the Scotty kind of jumped on, capitalized on by the Solar Scarabs, but ultimately it looked good for Barra.
Yeah, I'd argue that Scotty is in a similar position as Morgan Le Fay and that they're both incredibly immobile gods. The difference being, though, Scotty makes up for that immobility with the ability to jump, I guess. And by jump, I mean she's just got more dudes. Like, she brought a dog. Morgan Le Fay has, unreactable CC.
Scotty can't jump, to be clear.
Yeah, but she do be jumping though.
Like she jumps as like a fight.
Yeah, she
jumps you.
Yeah, you be getting jumped.
Right, and that's an important thing, Nif, to maintain your credibility here. We got to make sure that is very clear. Venenu deserves every ounce of love in the world as well here after Game 3, 22,000 damage.
Oh wow!
On this Tiamat pick, and that's such an interesting spot that Tiamat's in now. Where think about when Tiamat first came out. Actually, not a great debut, right? I mean, it was like 0-4 or something throughout those picks, but
she was so good though.
Close to that, right? 100% pick ban priority. Still has to be in that conversation though, right? I mean, top of the mage pool, especially when a guy like Ven's playing it.
I mean, Ven can make just about anything look good. That guy is so multi-talented out of the middle lane.
Right, jerseys look good.
Jerseys look
Joggers
good. Joggers look good. The Olympus bolts holistically look good, but maybe
and you're not saying this because he's really close to us right
Ven
now.
looks really good. Is he here?
He is here, and he is with us right now. Venenu, standing by for the post-game interview.
One thing everybody does know that Ven looks good. It's those selfies. Have you gotten that selfie out just yet today?
No, I have not.
No selfie. Slipping. Normally you do have it up right at the end of those games. Well, it's all right. We'll forgive you. You had to come in for the interview. We'll forgive you, and maybe the fans will. This Tiamat. Let's talk about it a little. I talked with Paul before, and he was just like, yeah, Tiamat Raijin, top 2. We've been seeing a lot less Tiamat in favor. What's kind of going on with this god here?
I think it's kind of like general consensus that she's definitely the best mage or contending with top 2, and people are just trying to figure out what else they can do or what to play into it and stuff like that, and just testing it on game day.
Yeah. Up here in game number 3, we see Haddix go Zhongkui and then Barracuda go Scotty. For some teams, it's kind of one of those, players kind of poke it. Hey, maybe I could kind of play this one. When Barracuda and Haddix throw, hey, I want to play this, is that one where you go, are you sure about that? Or you just say, okay, go for it.
I mean, I trust Barra. We all trust Barra. We trust what people want to play. And, yeah, I mean, it worked out for us. So, yeah, it's happy to have him play it.
Pretty good start there for him. I think he got like 5 kills in a row before he finally goes down. So, look good. And you got one more match before you go in towards the group stage. You got to go up against the Tartarus Titans. Mm-hmm. You saw the performance they had out here today up against the Dragons. You guys have anything in your pockets that maybe you're going to need in order to beat these guys?
Just going to do a lot of prep against them, make sure we know what we're doing. Make sure we're more prepped than I guess we were today. I think as well, I'm very excited to play against them in the studio. We haven't played it against that team, I believe, specifically yet. So definitely very excited to play them in the studio.
Should be a fun one. I think everybody's looking forward to more studio matches. I think everybody is looking forward to studio matches. Well, congratulations, Venenu, on your match today. I'll let you get back and celebrate with the team. Good luck in your next matchup.
Thank you very much.
We'll let Venenu go take that selfie. Post it on Twitter. Make sure to check him out. Is it just at Venenu, Ven, on Twitter? Venenu_ for all the post-game selfies and everything in that world. You don't want to miss them. They're always top-tier quality. Great day of Smite action here, Mifflin. If we're rounding out the entire day, we had 3 games set earlier on between the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans. Now you have a 3-game set against the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs. And I think that just shows, I mean, the league, I guess if you ignore the 2-0 sets at the beginning of the weekend, which you're not allowed to do, I was going to say the league is in such a competitive spot, which I do think it is. The Kings really just showed up. The Leviathans showed up as well. And look, I'll fully admit I was completely wrong on the Dragons here this weekend. I thought they were poised for a 2-0 weekend. I thought they were going to bounce back after dropping a couple of games previously. Tough sleddings here for the Jade Dragons to go to.
Yeah, but they did say they've been feeling good about the improvements that they've been able to make. So if you are a Jade Dragons fan, it's not all doom and gloom, and no shame in 3-3 in the win-loss.
Now we're gonna do all the math and stuff before tomorrow. Don't worry. We've been harping on the top 2 spots being the most important. The Leviathans still have 2 games to play. The Titans still have 2 games to play, and so they are feeling the most comfortable. Both of those 2 teams can control their own destiny because everyone beneath those 2 teams, save the Oni Warriors and the Valhalla Valkyries, all have already played their 6 games. So those teams only have 1 game left to play. So the Leviathans and the Titans, Miff, as far as being in the top 2 and drafting the groups for one another, mathematically, as far as games left to play, maybe feeling the most comfortable. But I think the fact that nothing is guaranteed up to this point does speak volumes with how competitive the league is at the moment.
Everybody has the chance to win. Every single one of these players feels like they've got a good shot playing into Worlds as well. So group stages and on top 2 here, very important just to figure out who it is exactly you're playing against inside of the playoffs. But I think I was kind of tinkering with the math, and fans at home, don't trust my math. I'm really bad at it. Again, I dropped out of school. I'm pretty sure the Leviathans are in a position now where they can't fall lower than 3rd seed.
Right.
Or even 2nd, really.
Right. The Leviathans absolutely in a power spot. Even if they didn't control their own destiny, which they do. The Leviathans are maybe the scariest team in the league. We will see them live in studio tomorrow up against the Tartarus Titans. Fun day of action here in the SPL, but unfortunately all good things must come to a close. On behalf of myself, Miff, and all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern for the SPL.
Peach it.